at a place called Arpedia Online. It is known as the best fantasy game among modern virtual reality games. It uses a dedicated capsule to create feelings indistinguishable from reality. And with patented scan technology, they create an avatar that looks exactly like the user. With the latest eye technology, the actions of NPCs and monsters feel as if they truly have senses. It even offers an exciting experience without the need for fighting. Due to its popularity, everyone is paying attention to the top players, but among them, the most noteworthy person is the level 50 warrior, Bartz. The reason why people pay more attention to him than other high-ranking players is because in Arpedia Online, where forming alliances is extremely important, he is a hardcore solo player, who has fought the Rage Dragon alone. There are many rumors circulating about him, such as him having connections with the game developers, or being a wealthy individual who has invested a lot of money into the game. But his real identity is that of an unemployed man named Kong Yuhan. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the very same top 50 ranker everyone is looking at is this guy. Despite being poor, I don't know why everyone gets excited just because I beat a normal dragon. The community is buzzing while I'm visiting my grandma. But the excitement suddenly disappeared. Taking advantage of the visit time, he logged into the game, but found himself stark naked, not even a loincloth left, leaving him utterly confused about what in the world was happening. This bare appearance of Kong Yuhan drew more attention than his top 50 account, sparking discussions among them. I don't want to look, he must be crazy. Let's go, should we report him, GM? Where are they? Letting him run around like that. Yuhan realized the situation was not looking good, especially being considered a pervert was quite stressful. He quickly spoke up, wait, I will put on clothes now, please don't report me. But as luck would have it, when Yuhan opened his inventory, he found nothing, no items or equipment whatsoever. This made his expression even more distorted, looking even more like a pervert. What is this? Why is there nothing here? Is it a bug? Where is the report button? He thought frantically. But more astonishingly, Yuhan's game information had been changed. He was now named Bartz, a completely new player at only level 1, akin to someone who, despite being at the bottom of society, had risen to the top echelons through a $400 million fortune. This information also left him utterly devastated, feeling powerless and only able to scream in despair. Yuhan's screams caught the attention of his mother, causing her to rush over in panic, thinking there was a thief in the house. Indeed, Yuhan's face was even more frustrated than if he had lost his rice stock. His mother could only stand there in astonishment looking at him. With tears streaming down his face, Yuhan informed his mother, I think my account got hacked. As if she couldn't hear him clearly, Yuhan's mother repeated, your game account? To make sure what account it was, she asked again for confirmation, your game account? She returned to her scolding form as if transformed, chastising her son, are you making all this noise just for that? What did you tell me when you dropped out? You said you would find your own way, didn't you? And now you're playing games. And all you do is sleep at the civil service exam prep school. Is that your way forward? Are you joking with me? Yes. Utterly shocked by her son's chosen path, the mother was almost driven to a heart attack in her anger before slamming the door and leaving. After being scolded by his mother, Yuhan could only sit helplessly in a corner, feeling regretful. I put so much effort into raising it. Give back Bartz, you sugarcane field hacker. The best solo player in the world, the lone wolf, the solo warrior, the dragon slayer, now for Yuhan, only has his loincloth left. With a sliver of hope to reclaim his account, Yuhan called the game publisher, saying worriedly, I think my character has been hacked. I've sent a report but only got a response that everything is normal. But that can't be, I've sent a report but only received a response that everything is normal. That's impossible. To be sure, the publisher asked again about the account information, along with anything linked to it, and like many cumbersome publishers, they made him wait for an answer. And their answer, satisfying to many, but for a reason to quit the game, was, Mr. Kong, I've checked again and your character was created 4 days ago and currently, there's nothing abnormal. Yuhan told them, but I created Bartz during the testing phase, my level has been reset, and my character is even naked. The publisher also informed, yes. The system indicates that the Bartz you're referring to was deleted 5 days ago. Yuhan continued to question, but I was at my grandma's all last week, so I couldn't possibly have logged in, how could I delete it? My account must have been hacked. But the publisher asserted that hacking was unlikely as they possess world-class security systems. I'm sorry to inform you, but it's highly likely you've compromised your own personal information, and of course, all blame was laid on Yuhan. Our company always suggests changing passwords weekly to prevent such incidents. The system shows you haven't changed your password weekly. Our terms clearly state the company is not responsible when users compromise their personal information. Faced with a response that was as good as none from the publisher, Yuhan hung up the phone, utterly frustrated and angry. But he was always certain, if it was deleted, it must have been hacked. I don't know who it was, but I definitely won't forgive them. Just wait, you fool. Amid his suffering, suddenly his younger brother opened the door and announced that their mother wanted something. But his words halted upon seeing his brother mourning the hacked account. And this guy was so ridiculous that he even invited his younger brother to drink in mourning for his account, making the younger brother think, is he crazy? I'm not even old enough. You immediately ask your older brother, so you finally lost your mind while studying for the civil service exam, huh? I knew you wouldn't make it, of course you lost your mind. Today is your halfway point to leaving this world. How can you be sober on a day like this? Oh? How sad. Playing games all day still not enough, huh? Truly a failure. Meanwhile, Yuhan over there is still proudly declaring that he'll only stop drinking when he drinks himself to death. By the way, Mom wants you to get the salt downstairs. Why? Can't you see you're busy? Go get it. But Yuhan's younger brother quickly slaps him in the face with the harsh reality. I have to go to the study center. I'm a high school student, while you're unemployed. Despite his younger brother's lack of respect, Yuhan found his reasoning too sensible to ignore, so he had to accept it. But as he went, the younger brother couldn't resist a jab, thinks he's better than you. With no other option, Yuhan reports to his boss that he himself is going to get the salt for the old lady to hold over her. Because the last time she cooked rice, the handle broke. Seeing the family's traditional salt container broken just from cooking rice, Yuhan's boss thinks his wife must have hit it really hard to break the salt container from those days. But suddenly, Yuhan realizes something here. He smiles brightly like a father seeing his newborn, not at all like the brother who was just criticized. Now, Yuhan feels like he has found the truth of life, no longer burdened as he was moments before. Swift as a gust of wind, Yuhan takes the ladle and darts upstairs. Arpedia Online is a system with durability. All equipment wears down in durability with use. When the durability of equipment reaches 0, it is an inevitable rule in this game that equipment without durability gets destroyed. Therefore, players will seek blacksmiths, individuals who can repair weapons. Since the ability to repair changes with level, the better and more expensive the weapon, the higher the level of the blacksmith required. What happens if a high-level blacksmith repairs a cheap weapon? Then, everyone will flock to them to request weapon repairs, of course. All of Bartz's weapons are expensive and rare. So, it's impossible for the hacker to just leave them be. Thus, if the hacker sells the items before deleting their character, then, I can track him down by following the transaction trail. Just you wait. I will deal with you after I catch you. Once again, Yuhan logs into Arpedia Online, in his bare skin. When the system asks if he wants to log into the game, he refuses. No. I want to create a new character. Alright, choose the birthdate of the character. Birthdate? Just pick any. Your character's birthdate will be April 4th. Do you also want to choose a random name for the character? No. I will name it myself. What should I name it? I like something short but powerful like Bartz. Okay, decision made. Yuhan decides the new character's name will be Zig. And so, Yuhan's new character begins to be set up. It will be the name of the greatest blacksmith in Arpedia, but no. This is a job that requires patience and endurance. This is not something a whippersnapper like you can just decide to take on as a challenge. If you understand, then get out of my forge. The one extinguishing Yuhan's dream is Smith Pabuchi, the NPC blacksmith. Without hesitation, he points his forging hammer directly at Yuhan, signaling him to leave immediately. These words are like a bolt from the blue, a bad omen, making Yuhan fear his quest is doomed to failure. There are two ways to obtain the profession of Arpedia creator. One is to buy skill books on learning. The other way is to learn by working. The latter not only helps us earn money but also allows for career advancement. But everyone avoids it because of the eccentric nature of the master NPC craftsman. Among them, I'm particularly wary of Pabuchi, because he constantly causes trouble when he tries to fix equipment as Bartz. But thinking of my own poverty, the only choice is to do it. Under the guise of the newly created character Zig, he said. The character information sheet below popped up a notification that he was currently only at level 10, and had 35 grams gold. He angrily slammed the door, muttering, upgrading the profession can be so difficult. Then he walked inside, boldly calling out, anyone here, I want to become a blacksmith. Smith Pabuchi, holding a hammer, looked at him and asked, a blacksmith, huh? Upon hearing this, he replied, Yes, I have just become the greatest blacksmith in the world. No way, Pabuchi frowned, rudely slapped him with the truth. Kong Yuhan was stunned by his words, looking foolish. Pabuchi pointed the hammer at him firmly, glancing over. I already know. You will never make it. Hearing this, he angrily replied, You're unfair. At least you should check before rejecting me. Pabuchi raised his hand to scratch his ear, lowered the hammer in amazement and asked, Check what? Exactly, he was told to do anything, he affirmed confidently. Pabuchi heard this, hummed thoughtfully, and finally agreed to let him take the test. He led Kong Yuhan to a place full of wood, crossed his arms and demanded, Cut all this wood, I'll give you a day. If you complete it, then I may reconsider, he said with a nonchalant expression. But with the stack of wood piled up so high that it was taller than a person, it really made it difficult for one. Upon hearing this, he exclaimed, He wants me to cut all this, while Pabuchi had already left since when. After he finished speaking, he shouted loudly, If you don't want to do it, then don't. He could only watch him leave in confusion. But in the end, he still had to do it. He tried to use the pickaxe to split a few small pieces of wood but slipped and hit another spot. With a weak body, just swinging the pickaxe a little made him breathless. Even the pieces of wood looked down on him with contempt. Refusing to lose, he continued to swing the pickaxe, but each time it slipped and missed the target. Second time, and the nth time, the swing intensified a few times but still did not hit a single blow. Kong Yuhan, out of breath, furious, grabbed his head and shouted loudly, Ah! Why do I have to do this? Damn it! Everyone else chooses to be an apprentice blacksmith and is taught how to swing a hammer. The guy carrying water beside him saw this and approached. Oh, probably because of compatibility, Kong Yuhan said with a surprised tone. By the way, who are you? Kong Yuhan looked at the water carrier and asked in confusion. Hearing this, he immediately explained, I'm also an apprentice blacksmith. Do you know how to choose your birthdate when creating a character? That will surely determine the compatibility between you and the profession. It is said that the creation of the profession has a particularly difficult start if the compatibility is not right. After hearing this, he remembered that he had previously asked the NPC to randomly choose a birthdate for him, so the birthdate is so important, he thought silently. The water carrier seeing this said, I also struggle with that. He looked at Kong Yuhan sympathetically. It seems like the two of them are in the same situation when choosing a birthdate. After hearing this, he cursed silently in his heart. Damn it! How was I supposed to know? Should I create a new character again? The water carrier left, wishing good luck while Kong Yuhan sat struggling with messy thoughts. No, I'll have to level up to 10 again. Instead of worrying about this and that, I should focus on this, he thought. He then regained his angry mood, swung the pickaxe and said, Surely he will promote me if I can cut all of this. Oh, damn it, that stubborn piece of wood. He chopped the wood vigorously like a machine. The first time he still missed but each swing hit something. Kong Yuhan, about to explode, shouted loudly, chopping the wood frantically. Time passed and he finally got to the last piece of wood. The shadows of the late afternoon had fallen, the pieces of wood he had chopped neatly stacked beside him. He had truly finished in one day. Pabuchi, looking at the pile of wood, marveled and said, and Kong Yuhan, on the ground, with a red face, panting heavily as if he was about to depart Earth for another place. Pabuchi finished speaking, he stood up straight and replied, Of course, I told you I could do it. So, will you hire me then? Not yet, kid. He immediately replied bluntly to the young man in front of him. Not stopping there, Pabuchi handed him a sword and continued to demand, Come on, go to the Lankel mine and mine 10 pieces of black coal for me. Kong Yuhan looked puzzled at the sword and said, Lankel mine, huh? Then he remembered that the system board had announced that the mine had levels 15 to 45, and besides, there was a fierce level 45 wild boar boss, which was very strong. If someone of only level 10 went there, it was like giving away their life. After recalling, he turned to question Pabuchi. He wanted me to go there, right? If something happens to me, will you take responsibility? I'm only level 10, you know. Hearing that, he replied, That's why I generously lent you this sword. You have to be careful. If you don't like it, just give up. Kong Yuhan, feeling angry, bit his lip and stared at him, thinking, Is my sword compatibility that bad? Alright, you've said it, he said, grabbing the sword from his hand. But promise me that I can be a blacksmith after this, okay? Of course, he assured. He arrived at the Lankel mine, a very desolate and dangerous place. At this point, the system displayed a mission board, marking the location of Pabuchi the blacksmith and obtaining black coal. The current coal count is 0 out of 10. Kong Yuhan swung his sword continuously at the stone mine. But the system kept reporting failures. His face covered in dust and sand, he paused for a moment and thought, I have to stay calm. This is not a game where brute force works. Recalling how he chopped wood, he took a deep breath and tried to imagine it. Gently gripping the handle, he swung it in a circular trajectory, just like swinging a sword. He swung the sword, and the rocks scattered due to the strong impact. Immediately, the system notification appeared, you have obtained black coal. He proudly said, that's my 2 years of experience. Alright, let's continue, visualize the sword swing, he said, preparing himself for the task. He continued to work in the same way, breaking the rocks around the mine. The system board displayed another message, you have received black coal. The task to locate Blacksmith Pabuchi and obtain black coal, 10 out of 10. Finally, the task of obtaining black coal in the Lankel mine was completed. The system requested him to bring the black coal to Pabuchi, and his reward was to be promoted to a blacksmith. Kong Yuhan glanced at the mission board and confidently stepped out of the coal mine, ignoring the others wrestling with chaotic monsters behind him, proving that the male lead's level was no joke. Suddenly, a creature's silhouette flashed ahead. He initially thought someone was using a game hack tool and called out, "Hey, wait, you hacker." But he immediately realized that it wasn't a human but an animal with a big nose and long horns. At that moment, the system warning message appeared that the fierce wild boar boss of the Lankel mine area had appeared. The monster let out a loud roar, its eyes shining brightly as it prepared to attack its prey in front of it. Staring at the boss in front of him, he stood still for 5 seconds, shocked. Then he immediately ran for his life as the monster chased after him. People around saw the boss chasing the prey and panicked, shouting, "It's the boss, run fast." The wild boar boss only appeared once a day in random locations, so why did it suddenly target him? He ran while cursing silently. Moreover, his profession as a creator had little physical strength, so if it hit him, he would probably be forced to log out of the game. The boss opened its mouth, revealing its sharp teeth, roared, and swiftly charged towards Kong Yuhan. With his agile reflexes, he jumped up and easily avoided its deadly bite. Observing the boss, it seemed to target only him, so he decided to abandon the escape plan and land lightly on the ground. In this game, the creator profession had disadvantages in combat. However, in the virtual reality games, the character's body was linked to the player's physical body. Kong Yuhan pulled out his sword, ready to fight the level 45 boss at level 10. But the game design of Apredia Online aimed for surrealism, depending on a person's martial arts skill or combat instinct. Kong Yuhan glared angrily at the boss in front of him. He immediately rushed to attack the monster, knowing that the battle disadvantage was not a guaranteed defeat. The wild boar boss's weakness was its forehead, so no matter how weak the damage, he could win by hitting its weak spot accurately. Without hesitation, Kong Yuhan used the newly learned skill and aimed straight at the boss's forehead. But it quickly dodged the deadly blow with just a head turn. He was surprised when it blocked his attack and stood idle for a moment. The boss immediately pushed him away, causing rocks and debris to fly around, retaliating against his previous attack completely. It was a level 45 boss, so its intelligence and high damage were expected. Refusing to give up, he stood up to continue fighting the monster in front of him, blaming his slow movement speed. If only he had brought the stamina potion. Kong Yun looked at the boss with anger in his eyes. The boss showed no mercy, immediately roaring and glaring before launching another attack. Seeing the boss approaching, he hesitated and thought, what should I do now? There was no answer other than to attack its weak point, or should he run? He gripped the sword tightly, trembling, and said, "No. Why worry about a crazy wild boar?" he thought, swinging his sword ready to face its next attack. Because he was Bartz, a character who may be temporary but his class was forever, he said confidently, his face full of determination, charging towards the boss. The beast roared loudly. Then, a system notification appeared stating that the current character did not have enough stamina. Please replenish with food. He stood frozen in disbelief, thinking, am I really out of stamina? Damn, at such a crucial moment, this serious issue arose, how unfortunate. Suddenly, an arrow flew towards them, its radiance indicating its strong power. It quickly hit the ugly boss, breaking one of its horns, and the system displayed a deduction of 30 health points from the boss. Kong Yuhan looked surprised at the unexpected attack and thought to himself, an arrow? Meanwhile, the boss turned around. With an arrow stuck on its side, it saw its horn fall to the ground. It let out a pitiful cry, pointing at the broken horn as if blaming whoever dared to break its beloved horn. Suddenly, a girl exclaimed, "Oh no, what have I done?" I didn't realize my attack power was so weak. It turned out to be a cute archer," she approached with concern. Immediately, the boss recognized her as the culprit of breaking its horn and changed its target towards her. It leapt towards her, seeming to go mad, attacking the archer. Confused, she looked at the boss and wondered, "Why is it attacking me?" Kong Yuhan, on the other hand, shouted, aiming at its forehead, "That's the weak point." Upon hearing this, she realized, the forehead, huh? Seeing the beast in front of her charging towards her, she thought. She immediately aimed and used her special skill with full force, shooting right at the boss's forehead. The system immediately announced a deduction of 720 health points from the boss. Then, the notification appeared that the archer Sia had defeated the raging wild boar. Kong Yuhan watched as the boss disappeared from the world server, feeling relieved. He sighed and said, "That was a close call." Hearing Sia's footsteps approaching him, he looked up at her and said, "Thank you for saving me," and her cute hands were quickly placed on his shoulders. "Wait, have we met somewhere before?" She looked up at him innocently, the intimate gesture making Kong Yuhan blush as he looked at her. He suddenly was hugged tightly by a strange girl who looked at him, instinctively took a few steps back. Sia approached him, her eyes somewhat judgmental, saying, "You look so familiar, or am I mistaken?" Kong Yuhan blushed and looked at the girl, thinking, "What's wrong with this girl, pushing into my face like this?" Not seeing him respond, she asked again, "Hey, are you even listening to me?" He hesitantly replied, "Oh, yes, I hear you." Immediately he turned and ran off, shouting, "I truly appreciate your help, but I have never met you before and I have a mission to complete now, so I don't have time. Thank you for everything, dear." Kong Yuhan ran and spoke, his voice gradually fading away, leaving Sia alone staring bewildered at him. Seeing such a strange expression, she was also confused but confidently said, "I'm sure I've met him somewhere before." Kong Yuhan showed Pabuchi the 10 black coals dug up from the coal mine on his difficult trip. He admired the coals in the bag, thinking excitedly, "I've never seen anything like this before, it's really interesting." Pabuchi approached and snatched the bag from his hand, saying, "Honestly, I didn't think you could get them, but you surprised me. If you know I can't do it, why do you make me do it?" he angrily complained. He frowned seriously and said, "I have to admit I underestimated you. I can make use of your resourcefulness, so from now on, I will hire you." Upon hearing this, Kong Yuhan happily exclaimed, "I accept." Suddenly an NPC from the system appeared out of nowhere. The NPC immediately asked him, "Do you want to become a blacksmith?" He quickly replied, "Of course, I've endured so many troubles just to become one." In anger, a sacred golden light appeared, showing a hammer and a piece of metal, perhaps the symbol of a blacksmith. The system message congratulated him on leveling up to become a blacksmith. Kong Yuhan's eyes sparkled with pride, thinking, "Finally made it." Yuhan arrogantly thought, "From now on, the life of Blacksmith Xing, who will one day become a legend, will begin." Blacksmith NPC Pabuchi saw Yuhan's arrogance and scolded him, "Why are you so careless? Quickly follow me." Obediently, Yuhan replied, "Yes, I'm coming." Although he listened, Yuhan inwardly cursed the hacker and vowed to confront him. People in the forge were busy working. The hammer struck powerfully. Yuhan raised the blade he had just forged and looked at it intently. He proudly admired his work, praising himself for having the talent to be a blacksmith. Immediately, Pabuchi appeared and poured cold water on him, saying, "Nonsense. Unsure if this would pass. This time I'll let it go. But if you give me such rubbish again, you won't get paid." Feeling criticized, Yuhan couldn't help but defend himself. "This is my first piece, isn't it worth anything?" Before he could finish, Pabuchi interrupted, demanding Yuhan to make 30 short swords for him. The door slammed shut with Pabuchi's warning that just one flaw would lead to dismissal. Yuhan was frustrated, his hand shaking, saying, "I work day and night on this and he doesn't even know. Is my work any different from others, always being ordered around?" Frustrated, he lamented, "Old Baldy is fooling me. Just wait and see, I'll make the best short swords." Even though night had fallen, the forge was still lit. A firm hand held the hilt of a sword. It was Yuhan holding up a short sword, carefully examining it and wondering, what's the issue? He racked his brain trying to figure out how to forge a good sword. But the failed short swords laid on the ground, the system notification revealing they were cheap, low-quality swords made by an amateur blacksmith, difficult to use due to their messy structure. Seeing the system message, Yuhan became even more annoyed, thinking, "I can't fail this Baldy." He went back to work on the swords. While working on a sword, Yuhan seemed to realize something. He held the sword up and observed it closely, saying, "I can see the blue vein. Not only this sword, but all the others as well, each with different patterns. Yuhan moved to another person's work area in the forge, taking the unfinished sword and startling the person, who asked, "What are you doing?" Yuhan evaluated the sword, finding the pattern ugly, and the person demanded Yuhan to give it back. Suddenly, Yuhan raised the sword towards the person, causing fear and confusion as to what was happening. Although he was trembling, Yuhan acted as if nothing was wrong and asked again, "You don't see anything wrong?" While swinging the sword, Yuhan asked, "Do you not see any veins on the sword?" The other person quickly replied, "I don't see anything, don't bother that crazy guy anymore." Upon hearing this, Yuhan fell into deep thought for a moment. Then he casually handed the sword back to the other person and replied, "I also have no idea, just carry on with other tasks." The system then displayed a notification, "Train blacksmiths. If you are a blacksmith, then you must know how to repair. Repair 5 broken axes and bring them to Pabuchi, axes repaired 0/5." Yuhan looked closely at the axe in his hand, scratching his head in confusion. This time the red veins, maybe I should try hammering, perhaps when I finish repairing, they will disappear, Yuhan said as he swung the hammer down. But each time the hammer was struck down, Yuhan was still focused on repairing the axes, but the system notified, "You have failed to repair." Seeing the failure, Yuhan held the axe up with tears streaming down. "I have no talent for repairs." Suddenly, he discovered something. The broken pieces of the axe in his hand matched the red veins. Excited, Yuhan thought to himself. Back at the Pabuchi forge, he angrily called out to Yuhan. "Where are you, Xing? You promised to finish it immediately, it's been days now." Upon seeing Yuhan, he quickly approached him. As he approached, he said, "How much time did it take for you to finish 10 short swords? I'm sure your repair training is also a mess now." However, upon reaching there, Pabuchi was surprised by what he saw. In front of him were the beautifully arranged short swords. He picked one of them up and evaluated it, unable to believe his eyes, while Yuhan stood calmly beside him and asked, "How is it? Isn't it perfect?" After a few days of crafting and repairing, I have discovered a surprising truth. The first is the blue veins. These are marks left by the hammer hitting the metal. Its shape is influenced by the force and timing of the hammer strike. The more even the veins, the higher the quality. Next is the red veins. These are cracks inside the metal structure formed during repairs. And theoretically, if I focus on these veins, the item can be completely repaired. Blue veins and red veins are the key to perfecting both crafting and repair. Thinking back to the sleepless nights, Yuhan felt it was worth it. And thanks to that, Yuhan had gained a great ability. Not wanting Yuhan to praise himself any further, Pabuchi slammed his hand on the table and scolded him, "Xing," making him jump. Thinking he would scold Yuhan some more, Pabuchi instead happily raised his finger in a good gesture and said, "You did well, you have graduated." Upon hearing this, Yuhan was stunned for a moment and asked, "Really?" Continuing, Pabuchi said, "Of course, your skills are good enough. To be honest, I am amazed. You see, those without talent usually give up immediately." Hearing these words, Yuhan was puzzled. He asked Pabuchi, "Has anyone without talent like me ever passed your training?" Pabuchi shook his head, "No one has done it, they lack perseverance." Yuhan continued to ask, "Then has anyone seen the veins or something like that?" But Pabuchi did not understand what Yuhan was saying. He said there was nothing like that. Upon receiving the answer, Yuhan thanked Pabuchi, but he pondered with crossed arms. This extraordinary ability may be related to hidden achievements. The condition may be achieving a specific rank during NPC training with extremely low compatibility. I have never seen this on the internet before. Maybe I am the only one who has gone through these troubles. Thinking about this, Yuhan smiled. He speculated, that means I am the only one who possesses this ability. Yuhan said with an enthusiastic expression, "Everything is more interesting than I thought." A man's voice echoes in the quiet space, "Hey Bartz. Why do you insist on being alone?" Bartz bows his head in silence and responds, "Why, you ask?" He recalls old memories, the filth and darkness hidden deep within everyone's subconscious, often becoming the target of bullying, a laughingstock for many. Echoes of voices gradually appear. "Die, idiot, it's your fault. Commit suicide. Die, idiot. So annoying. Die, die, die." A guy grabs Bartz's hair, taunting, "You miserable thing. How are you still alive?" Disgusting laughter rings out. They continuously torture him, physically assaulting Bartz, not forgetting to insult and curse him. "Look at him. What a fool. Disappear. Apologize. You worthless filth. Kneel down." Then he coldly continues, "Because humans can't be trusted." Darkness engulfs the entire scene. The ringing of the phone cuts through the mixed images in his head. Yuhan is startled awake. He holds his forehead and sighs. Yuhan mumbles, "It was just a dream." Then, Yuhan moved his hand to massage his neck, saying, "Is it because I didn't sleep well? Why did Dad make me watch the store when there are no customers like this?" Suddenly, the phone rang, lighting up the screen with an incoming call interface. Attracted by the ringtone, Yuhan picked up the phone, wondering aloud, "I don't recognize this number." Then he decided to ignore it and picked up the call. Yuhan spoke first, "Hello?" The voice on the other end said, "Hello Mr. Kong, my name is Yang Ho Shik. I'm a customer service manager at DreamMax." Hearing this, Johan became irritated and said, "Hello, bye," but the person quickly explained, "Wait a moment, Mr. Kong. Did you call us a few days ago about being hacked?" Yuhan immediately became excited, joyfully asking, "Have you decided to restore my character?" The person on the line replied, "No, sir. According to our policy, we cannot restore your character." Hearing this, Johan was disappointed, his mood plummeting. The person continued, "However, we have decided to compensate you." Yuhan responded irritably, "Compensation? Do you want to compensate me with gifts? I don't need compensation, so don't call me unless you plan to restore Bart's." The person on the line asked in surprise, "That's the latest model worth $8,000. Are you sure you don't want it?" Hearing this, Yuhan was mentally shocked, now only processing the $8,000. Yuhan was extremely excited, saliva nearly dripping. He eagerly replied, "Yes, I need it." On the other side of the earth, in a resort with long golden beaches, clear blue waters, and palm trees basking in the sun, a voice said, "Does he like it?" That voice came from a man casually talking on the phone while sunbathing. The voice on the phone said, "Initially, he said he didn't need it, but immediately agreed when I mentioned the capsule. Sir, he might be thanking you right now. Director Sun Sokjin." The person on the line asked, "Director? Why did you spend your own money to give him the capsule?" Sun Sokjin stopped working, deep in thought. Sun Sokjin spoke up, saying even though he was hacked, he continued playing instead of quitting the game. Moreover, he plays a blacksmith character, a character most players avoid. Taking off his sunglasses, Sun Sokjin casually said, "Aren't you curious about what he will do in the upcoming update?" "I'm quite excited about it." In the game at that moment, early morning sunlight shone through the roofs of ancient houses. A new notice was added to the announcement board, stating, "The dungeon hunting team conquering Debra Dungeon is recruiting members for dungeon hunting in Debra. We have a marksman, a knight, and a wizard. If you are interested, please direct message Sia." Sia looked at the announcement board, mumbling in disappointment, "Why is it so hard to find a team?" While everyone was bustling about, Sia was still focused on the notice, walking without watching her path, muttering to herself about how, when she finally finds someone, they end up breaking their promise. She wondered if she should form a 3-person team. She wasn't paying attention to the people around her and then collided with someone passing by. Both looked up at the same time and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." Recognizing each other's faces, both were extremely surprised. Sia said, "You're the one who was chased by the wild boar." She said, "I'm lucky to have found you. Do you want to?" Before she could finish her sentence, she saw Zig use the speed of light to dash away, thinking to himself, "Escape quickly before trouble arises." Sia quickly followed. Wearing a pageant-winning smile, she said, "Let's talk for a bit." Zig was surprised, thinking, "She's fast." Ignoring the person beside him, he continued forward. Sia caught up and said, "Sorry, I meant let's talk." She moved forward to block Zig's path. He gasped for breath and awkwardly smiled, saying, "What do you want?" Sia held the notice in front of him and asked, "Do you want to form a team with me?" Zig, taken aback, asked, "Form a team?" Sia said, "You've never been to Debra Dungeon, right? They say it's a great place to level up for newcomers, and you can even make some money." Zig, embarrassed, remembered that Bart's, the character he used to play, was the first to discover Debra Dungeon. He muttered in frustration, "I've been there already." Sia continued with a persuasive smile, "I'm looking for people to join, but I've only found 2 so far. If you join, we'll have 4, which is the recommended number." Zig coldly replied, "I don't want to," causing Sia's smile to fade instantly. She persisted, "Why not? We keep running into each other." So, she turned to Zig, who was frantically shaking his head in refusal, as if his head would fly off if it could. Sia asked curiously, "Why don't you like it? You could make some money and level up too." Zig fell silent, remembering Bart's face. After a moment of silence, he said, "Just don't like it." Saying goodbye to Sia, Zig headed to his blacksmith shop. As he was focusing on forging a sword, a group of people approached, their conversation audible. Is this guy really good at repairing? Someone responded, takes a bit long, but they say he can fix it 100%. In front of Zig's blacksmith shop was a sign that read, Zig's blacksmith shop, weapons under rank D, 99% repair rate, only 30 gold coins. Someone exclaimed in surprise, really? All that for just 30 gold coins? Zig wiped the sweat from his forehead, thinking to himself, I didn't expect it to be this busy, should I charge more? Slapping himself to snap out of it, Zig thought, no, who cares about the money, I need to catch the hacker, and shouted, next. A hand went up, and in front of him was a green bow. Zig took the item, thinking, this is the ranger's bow, the only rank D weapon I had as Bart's. Focusing on the bow, Zig thought more deeply, did I find a clue about the hacker this quickly? No badge, a harsh truth he had to accept that nothing comes easy, rice doesn't cook itself. The person with the bow paid Zig, saying, here are the 30 gold coins. As Zig accepted the gold, he thought to himself, why does he talk like an idiot? While waiting for the repair, two men were idly chatting. The fat one covered his mouth and asked in a conspiratorial tone, so, you're really going to give it to her, huh? The skinny one replied, of course, gotta spend a little to get the goods. Observing the scene before him, Zig thought irritably, he thinks this is some kind of dating game or what? The two men's conversation escalated, with the fat one saying, so, we help her in the dungeon, even give her rare items. If she refuses to meet us in real life, wouldn't that be a loss? The skinny one retorted, idiot, think about it. Who would have the shame to refuse an offer after receiving all that? Despite focusing on his work, Zig couldn't help but eavesdrop, drawn in by their story. The fat one agreed, right, as the skinny one put an arm around him, continuing, yeah, and if she refuses, we can threaten to post about her on the community forum. Then we can pressure her to go drinking with us. Zig looked at them disdainfully, thinking, blackmail, these guys are truly despicable, feeling sorry for their intended target. Their conversation continued, and Zig didn't neglect his primary task, hammering away at the bow. The fat one said, hey, send her a message. We can't let her claim she forgot, and the skinny one asked, what's her username again? The fat one said, you don't remember? It's Sia. Hearing this, Zig stopped his work, his hammering arm frozen midair without making any sound. He spoke up, cutting off the two rakes, dear customers. Zig continued, I've finished the repair, and handed the bow back to the two men. The skinny one, taken aback, replied, ah, okay. However, as he was about to take the bow, Zig held onto it tightly. The skinny one was surprised and said, what are you doing, let go. Zig thought to himself, Sia is the name of the girl on the poster that the marksman gave me earlier. The skinny one continued to grumble, what's this? I've already paid. He raised his voice, what the hell, are you mad because it's too little money? Ignoring his nonsense, Zig thought further, it can't be a coincidence that this game has duplicate usernames. Looking up, he continued his line of thought, it must be the same person. Then suddenly, Zig let go of the bow he was holding. The skinny one, caught off guard, fell backward, landing on his backside with a thud. The fat one looked at the skinny one, who was trembling as he stood up, and asked with concern, Zurus, are you okay? Zurus was furious, veins bulging on his face, he growled, this damned clueless blacksmith. He lunged forward, grabbing Zig by the collar and shouted angrily, are you looking for trouble, have you lost your mind, dog? Looking at Zig's impassive face, Zurus snarled, apologize now, or you'll have to quit this game, understand? A muscular man intervened to break the tense situation, saying, hey, if it's already fixed, then move aside. The one who spoke up was Guilford, his face menacing as he said, there are many people waiting. The person with the cold face is Guilford Fong Bao. He is the leader of the strongest mercenary guild in the Red Tiger Society. Moreover, he is also a famous player ranked 45th in the entire server. Currently, with a serious face, looking fearful, he is dealing with something extremely important. He is standing in line in front of the forge like everyone else waiting to repair items. It's true that no matter how famous you are, if your item is broken, you have to fix it yourself. Looking at the shattered sword in his hand, he murmurs emotionally, I have had many memories with it. Remembering, Guilford recalls that he has brought it to many blacksmiths but none could meet his requirements. He asks, is it true that no matter how much durability it has, can you fix it? The blacksmiths panicked and refused. It has a durability of 10 stars, I can't do it, no, no. Thinking here, he murmurs emotionally, if it can't be fixed here, do I have to go find Gion? The arguments in front interrupted his thoughts. Guilford thinks in his head, if they have finished repairing their items, why haven't they left yet? Approaching them, Guilford coldly interrupts the noise. "Hey, if you're done fixing your items, can you move aside? There are still people waiting behind you." Looking towards the one who spoke, Zurus was scared. He thought in his head, Guilford Fong Bao, why is a rancor here? The fat man next to him expresses concern. We were just about to leave as well. Zurus continues nervously, that's right, we've been chatting for a while, haven't we? He continues, well then, have a good day, and then he and the fat man quickly activate the map movement hack and run away. Turning back, Guilford speaks, after all, they are still polite people. Holding out the broken sword in front of Zig, he says, this is my favorite sword since I was an apprentice. Can you fix it? Zig accepts the sword and gets to work. He says, I'll get to it, and adds, yes, please wait a moment. Guilford watches his work and thinks to himself, even though he is a D rank, and even lower, the success rate is 99%. It's unbelievable. Zig repairs the sword and thinks to himself, focus, concentrate. Why should I care when I'm not involved? His attention is no longer on the sword. Zig remembers the innocent face of Sia, the annoying faces of the two men before, and the scene of him leaving when she invited him to join the team. Zig's determined gaze indicates that he knows what to do next. Guilford, lost in happiness, has imagined his cherished sword being restored. He thinks, when it's fixed, I'll hang it in a guild building. A cracking sound reverberates as Zig shatters Guilford's sword, bringing him back to reality. The system announcement rings out, you have failed to repair the pitiful sword, it is now unusable. Guilford's face turns to stone as a major shock hits him. Holding the sword, he anxiously says, oh, the sword is gone. He continues, how could this happen? Looking up to find Zig, he has disappeared, leaving behind only the broken sword. The system notification rings out, Zig has logged out of the online world. Guilford is in shock part 2. Facing two major setbacks in one day, Guilford angrily smashes the table. He shouts, where did he go? He's gone, come back here, you cursed blacksmith. Meanwhile, Sia is standing in front of the Deborah dungeon with two men, one skinny and one fat, both blocked by large iron chains at the entrance. Sia approaches, and the system announces, Bartz is the first to find it. Surprised, she exclaims, so this is the Deborah dungeon. Seeing her bewildered expression, the fat man comments, yes, this is an extremely frightening cave. The mage Deborah was a threat to the Barca's kingdom. Do you know that? The skinny man adds, don't worry, it's just a dungeon for newcomers. We've passed a few levels. The skinny man continues, let's go now. As he is about to put his hand on Sia's shoulder, a voice interrupts, wait a moment. Breathless, Zig says, we made it in time. Sia turns to see who spoke. Zig, slightly embarrassed, continues, so, you're the team invading the Deborah dungeon, right? Sia, surprised, jokes, here comes the ungrateful blacksmith. Zig retorts, who's ungrateful? You didn't even say hello properly after I saved you and you ran off. Sia, with a natural look, says, hey, I saved you, didn't I? But you didn't even bother to say thank you and just left. She holds out her hand, smiling, but in the end, you made it here. You also want to punish the dungeon, don't you? Welcome, I'm the archer Sia. Zig dumbfoundedly looks at his hand, the atmosphere awkward. Zig rubs his head and laughs awkwardly, I'm Zig, please help me. Sia responds shyly, yes, please support me. In a hurry to introduce Zig to the people with her, Sia spoke up, everyone, this is the blacksmith I want to introduce to you. Sia pointed in the direction of the chubby man, Zig, this is Alden, beside him is Zurus. Pointing to them, Sia exclaimed, they are all skilled players at level 70. The two looked at Zig with a slightly unnatural face, whispering to each other. Alden said, this is Zurus. Zurus added, yeah, still that young blacksmith. He looked cunningly at Zig. Looking at Zig's innocent face, Zurus said, if you're a blacksmith, you don't have any combat skills, so is that okay? Sia smiled and said, it's okay. Zig is very strong, I have seen it with my own eyes. Zurus chuckled and said, even so, the crafting profession is a bit. He thought to himself, this is the first time someone has praised a blacksmith as strong. Ignoring their emotions, Zig spoke up, it's really a coincidence. You all have met me at the forge, right? Switching to chat mode, Zig quickly approached and apologized for what happened, so please support me. He continued, I won't say anything foolish, so don't worry, from now on I will make equipment for you. Zurus looked suspiciously at Zig. He said, okay, let's shake hands first before it's too late. Alden whispered to Zurus, can we trust him? What if he talks nonsense? Zurus reassured him, it's okay. He continued, if he decides to say something foolish, I can kill him and pretend it's an accident. If he tries to provoke us, that girl will think something suspicious is going on." Zig stood behind Sia watching the group enter the cave, silent and unreadable. Inside the cave, only moving skeletal remains were left, darkness enveloped them, a dank atmosphere lingering. As light emanated, both Alden and Zurus were extremely excited, displaying their martial arts skills, their voices echoing as they showcased their moves. Fire swirling, fierce combat, the skeletal remains falling one by one. Sia watched them in amazement, too shocked to move. Zurus glanced at Sia, smirking in his head, her attention focused on my handsome appearance, not bad. Suddenly, Sia exclaimed, "How did you do that?" Even Zurus was surprised and turned his attention to Zig. Meanwhile, Zig was surrounded by a group of skeletons. Holding his sword in hand, he jumped up. The serious look on Zig's face appeared. He thought to himself, the weakness of the skeletal essence. He carefully aimed and pierced the skull of the skeleton with precision. Successfully landing, the skeletons also fell, their broken bones scattering. Facing them, Zig's gaze was serious. He thought, lacking any combat skills, if surrounded by mobs, things could get even more difficult. He needed to escape quickly. So Zig immediately used his skills to attack the weak point of the skeletal essence. With his sharp sword, he pierced through the skeletal essence, smiling proudly. Zig explained that their weakness was the source of their strength, the heart. A loud explosion echoed in the dark cave. The system's warning sounded, "Not enough stamina. Please use food." Zig thought annoyingly, that's all, and his stamina is already weakened. While Zig was murmuring to himself, luckily he had brought cookies. Sia was excitedly telling Zurus, without using skills, he could still defeat the mobs in one blow. "Didn't you see, Zurus? I told you Zig is very strong." Annoyed, Zurus thought to himself, that annoying guy, showing he's dangerous without using skills. He gritted his teeth and began his evil plans, thinking to himself, I planned to take on this burden but it's not working out. Zig looked over at Zurus, his gaze serious. He thought, I should take it slow. Get rid of him, both you and Zurus are already itching for a fight. Both men began to confront each other fiercely. The sky was as dark as ink. A skeleton in iron armor, he pulled a purple rocket arrow ready to fire simultaneously, his eyes gleaming red. The arrow shot out, tearing through the pitch-dark night and dyeing the space purple. He stared at it intently, gritting his teeth, silently thinking, here it is. Unexpectedly, a dagger with a green glow suddenly flashed to stop the arrow, causing a purple light where they touched. Then, a pink and purple explosion accompanied by the thoughts of Mr. Counterattack. Immediately, that light pierced Zig's right chest. The light transformed into an arrow, causing him pain, his eyes wide and tears streaming down. Sia's left hand was holding a bow, suddenly turned to see him still in pain, nausea, but Zurus just smirked, holding the dagger, sneering, hee, this is the hidden skill I just learned, cool, right? The damage will be much more painful because of its doubled strength. Sia panicked and asked, are you okay? After that question, a green notification screen appeared. You will be paralyzed for 10 minutes, your speed will be reduced. Zig teared up, awkwardly laughing to hide the pain, replied, ha ha, it's okay, just an arrow, I'm fine. But deep inside, the tears are like an endless sea. His face wrinkled as if he wanted to scream to the top of his lungs, turning up the maximum sensitivity in the game, so it hurts like hell. Zyrus laughed haughtily, looking at him mockingly, saying, look at you. I guess you're also at your limit. It's true that a blacksmith is just like that. Alden also joked, don't be mean. I'm sure he's embarrassed too, ha ha. Zyrus laughed haughtily, looking at him mockingly, saying, look at you. I guess you're also at your limit. It's true that a blacksmith is just like that. Alden also joked, don't be mean. I'm sure he's embarrassed too, ha ha. Behind Sia was a quiver of arrows. She looked at Zurus placing the dagger on his shoulder while Alden held a scepter in front of his chest. Sia clenched her fist, shouting, no, we can't just leave him here alone. Hearing that the two men looked at her with irritation and disdain, Zurus said reluctantly, but Sia. Suddenly, Zig interrupted him, I will stay. He gestured awkwardly, struggling to say, if I rest a little longer, I'll be able to stand up and follow everyone. Hearing that, Zurus chuckled and said, he's right. Plus we know the location of others because we are in the same guild. Alden's right hand held the glowing scepter, shining where they stood. His left hand reached out to reassure, come on. No need to worry, and Zig nodded. Sia frowned, silently sinking into thought. After considering, she turned around, walked with the two men but still looked back at him and instructed, promise that when the effect is over, you must let me know, okay? Zig replied okay, and Zurus also turned, smirking at him. The purple hues still ran around him. Only the three of them stood in the light while everything else was in darkness. Zig stood still watching them leave. After that, he wore brown gloves and raised his hand to touch the green screen, selecting the green medicine bottle in the second slot on the top row. The bottle of medicine appeared in his hand, but some medicine spilled out. Zig raised it and drank it all in one go, causing the medicine in the bottle to flow from his mouth down to his chin. After drinking, the green screen immediately displayed a notification: you have taken a regular antidote, you are no longer paralyzed. After reading the notification, Zig wiped off the remaining medicine on his mouth, wondering, alright, should I start now? Alden's scepter emitted a warm golden light. Thanks to the light from Alden's scepter, Sia walked ahead of Zurus and Alden, and their shadows stretched out in front of them. Zurus extended one hand and held the dagger, opening his mouth. Is this the right light? While Alden teased her by saying it matches your current outfit nicely, causing Sia to remain silent and walk away. The two men smirked, looking down at her. Alden continued, this is a really cheap weapon, huh? Why does it look expensive to me? Hearing him, she looked down at her weapon, replying, it's a common weapon at our level, so don't be too pressured. One of them said, besides, we're not archers, so it's better if you use it. Sia hesitantly replied, I know, so I'll just borrow it until we complete the dungeon. Thank you, guys. Alden looked at her, thinking to himself, hee. Look at her happiness. Then he said to Zurus, quietly, hey Zurus, it's time. Hearing that, Zurus chuckled and nodded. Suddenly, Alden was surprised to see a rock flying towards and hitting his scepter. Surprised, he dropped the scepter, causing it to fall to the ground, and the light disappeared. The only light that helped them see the way suddenly disappeared, making them panic and scream loudly, Kya. In the darkness, Zurus angrily asked, hey Alden, what are you doing? Hearing Zurus's question, he also angrily complained, it's not me. Suddenly a rock flew straight at it. Darkness covered everywhere, but Sia remained calm and gently said, all right, turn on the light. Alden said, the scepter. He fumbled and found the scepter, joyfully exclaiming, here it is. A bright yellow light suddenly flashed, dispelling the pitch-black darkness. However, there were three skeletons looking down at them, surrounded by glowing red flames. In their eye sockets was only a flickering flame. Alden looked at them in horror, stammering, what is this? They were both shocked by the skeleton army surrounding Alden and Zurus, making them scream, attack them. At that moment, she winked and followed the light ahead. A skeleton looked up, staring at the red light ahead. Suddenly, the skeleton army attacked Alden and Zurus, causing the two men to shout, go attack them all. A hand in a brown glove was pulling Sia's bow away, even though her hand was still holding it tightly. She squinted, hesitantly asking, who are you? Let me go. Your hand carried a torch that dyed the space red. Zig turned back, looked at her reassuringly, stay calm, it's me. You walk ahead, raising the torch in your right hand to see the way, while pointing with your left hand. Sia was still surprised to know that the one who saved her was Zig. She asked, what's going on? Is it you? Where are we going? We have to help those two, the monsters will. Zig calmly reassured, don't worry, both of them are level 70, right? The light from the torch shone on Zig's face. He raised his hand to his chin and said, this dungeon is for players around level 45. Those two will be fine, so let's just escape first. Back to Alden and Zurus, the space was dark. As they ventured deeper, a faint light began to illuminate the surroundings. In that light, Alden, exhausted, held his rod up to light the area, while the weary man sat down and asked, are we done? Zurus put his axe down behind him and the man replied, I think we're done. Zurus sweated profusely, muttered to himself, that idiot. What was he thinking bringing the monsters here? Suddenly he realized, oh, over there, Alden looks exhausted and tongue-tied. Zurus called, hey Alden, look at this. In front of the two men, various weapons lay scattered on the ground. He said, there are many good items here. Alden squatted down, surprised, really, did these items just fall here in this dungeon? Zurus, unconcerned, knelt down and urged, let's grab them quickly. Alden's eyes lit up with dollar signs, eagerly asking, how much is this pile worth? Zurus's eyes also showed money symbols, his mouth watering as he said, let me tell you, punching a few monsters is worth it. Suddenly, a voice rang out, stop right there. With her left hand clenched into a fist, she growled sternly, I don't believe you two are ready to enjoy these items. Zurus, holding the item, turned back in anger, while Alden had turned pale at some point, clutching his hands tightly and listening to her speak. You two are well-known troublemakers on the bulletin board, right? You guys are really despicable. Listen to what Golem said. Zurus immediately cursed, what the hell did you just say? Do you dare to speak ill to me as well as to the entire low level and high levels? But as they watched, they both sweated profusely, one after the other. In front of the two men was a woman with dark hair, Wearing a red armor, her left hand clutching a fist, behind her were her companions. She glared angrily at the two men. "This is Wang Chulsu, level 100. Recalling then, Yuhan sat in front of a brightly lit laptop screen, briefly introducing Zurus and Alden as two notorious names on the bulletin board for harassing female players. And those who threatened and forced female players to meet them in real life. The two leaned against each other, sneering at each other, while Zurus poured more wine to a brown-haired girl sitting across from them, and Alden sipped his lips. And of course, no one knows what happened when they met in real life, but the way the players left the game afterwards seems like nothing good happened. The screen displayed that the player named P. Weta Solhawa logged in 46 days ago. And the issue would not go beyond their reach as the people they encountered all disappeared. There was a landscape painting attached to the side of the cabinet and a trash can under his desk. Yuhan sat pensive on the chair, looking at the laptop screen and thinking, so I made a decision. He scowled, furrowing his brows, and thought, I will kick those guys out of the game. He remembered the moment he smirked, carried a torch and led a skeletal army to the two guys. Seeing another group of players consisting of 2 men and 2 women, their area illuminated by the light from the blonde girl's staff, long blue dress, Zig in his cloak, clutching an item in his hand. He thought silently the plan was very simple. Zig smirked, tossing the bag of items in his hand. He thought further, quite easy for me, the one who knows so much about the characteristics of the Debra dungeon. The blue announcement screen slowly appeared. Yes sir. Please don't, I beg you. The items. Zig just stood still, watching each announcement. He chuckled coldly. He sat down and picked up the items, while the blue announcement screens appeared. Wait. What are you planning to do? These are our items. Suddenly another screen popped up, declaring you're the one who gathered the monsters, items scattered everywhere. Another screen appeared. You scumbag. Just wait there, I'll bring my main character. Zig held up the bracelet, smirking, thinking the Debra dungeon is where players often plot against each other. He recalled a bulletin board rule for the Sever disaster board, where the Debra dungeon struck him first and it was also the best. So he thought, as long as I can make it look like they're the ones who did it, then. Wang Chulsu's gang angrily looked at the two men. Wang Chulsu said, I hope you are ready. Both of them sat on the ground. Zetrus shouted, wait, we didn't do anything, while Aiden sobbed and crouched behind Zurus, holding onto his shoulder tightly, saying, that's right, we're just victims. Around the two men were surrounded by Wang Chulsu's people, listening to the two men's false justifications. An angry person shouted, shut up. You were just wearing the ring I bought yesterday. Another screamed, don't argue. There was an explosion, filling the space with red light. The screams of both men echoed through the sky. Zig thought, those two scoundrels will have to leave the game. The yellow announcement board displayed Zirus's and Alden's names blacked out, leaving only Sia and Zig in yellow. Sia looked at the announcement board and said to herself, oh, those people logged out, they died, right. Behind her, Zig put his hand to his face, smiling satisfactorily. Zig playfully shrugged, shaking his head, and said, no, I just messaged them, they said they had urgent matters to attend to. Upon hearing this, Sia turned and asked him, really, why didn't they message me? Zig just waved his hand and joked, I don't know. Why didn't you ask them next time you're online? Although he said that, he was probably convinced that they would not be able to be online with characters like that again. Sia looked at the notification on Sia's screen that Sia's level is 42, while Zig is level 38. Then she said, I guess, we have to go back, huh? I hear you sigh. Yeah, it might be quite difficult for us. Watching Sia turn back, he thought, now we have achieved our goal. Should we go back and focus on leveling up? A dungeon door appears and Sia says, shame, I just want to clean up this dungeon because I don't have much online time today. She tugs at her hair restlessly and says, well, I guess there's no other way. Zig looks at her silently, thinking, she can't play anymore, can she? She turns towards him and says, all right, let's go back. Seeing that, he reaches out to stop her, wait. And he bows his head hesitantly, saying, yeah. Zig suggests, we're already here, why don't we go in? The sky is gloomy and the dungeon door slowly opens as they enter. He adds, to defeat the boss. Yuhan pointed backward, signaling to Sia, speaking softly, to fight the boss. Sia stood puzzled for a moment. Yuhan had to recount his own situation, saying, you don't know, my situation is quite difficult. Yuhan's childhood memories flashed in his mind, such as his mother breaking the favorite dish he liked, him holding back tears behind his mother, regretting the lost toy, and the times he was caught playing games by his mother. Posting notes and paper warning not to open it under the threat of his mother. Times when he trembled in fear, his mouth twisted, and his eyes wide with fear of his mother finding out. Recalling those painful memories, he felt sorry for himself and cried, his body trembling, and his resolve strengthened in his decision to create unforgettable memories for someone. Therefore, Sia asked, "I don't understand what you mean, but you want us to hunt down the boss together, right?" After some hesitation and confusion, Yuhan wiped away tears and got straight to the point. He was suddenly surprised. It turns out Sia didn't hear what he said. She had already arrived at the gate and waved to him, saying, "What are you doing? Hurry up." Yuhan was flustered and could not believe her reaction. He asked, "When did you come here?" Yuhan suddenly widened his eyes. The doors began to close. Yuhan immediately realized the urgent situation and rushed to Sia, looking pale and anxious. He called out to her, "Wait for me." After rushing over, Yuhan sat down to catch his breath, looking as if he had been through a near-death experience. He was panting, sweating profusely, and his hair was a mess. He struggled to speak, almost out of breath. Contrary to Yuhan, Sia appeared calm and comfortable. She hesitated and asked, "But I wonder, can the two of us hunt down the boss?" Yuhan confidently replied, "If it's just a stone golem, then it's completely possible. And with me here, there's no problem at all." He boasted, affirming that he could protect Sia. Yuhan smirked and said arrogantly, "You see, I know the layout of Deborah's dungeon like the back of my hand." He approached, self-praising without any sense of shame. Yuhan had already devised a cunning plan in his mind, thinking that in this realm, even if he wanted to make a mistake, it would be impossible. By helping her, he also aimed to level up himself. Sia looked around, feeling a bit worried, and wondered why she hadn't seen anything yet. Yuhan sat down to rest, wiping his forehead, and said, "It may appear if we wait a little longer. After all, a stone golem usually looks like a rock." Suddenly, there was a sound, and a chubby cute mouse popped out from under Yuhan's buttocks, seemingly accidentally squished by him. Seeing this, Yuhan stroked the mouse's head, while Sia exclaimed in delight, "It's also a monster, so cute." It seemed like Sia really liked the chubby mouse, while the mouse itself looked angry despite the cheerful reactions of the two. Yuhan gazed thoughtfully at the mouse, thinking, "Is this a mouse or is it following the stone golem like its shadow?" Yuhan prodded the mouse's face, realizing that the stone golem was right nearby. The annoyed mouse became more agitated, so Yuhan gave a command, saying, "Hey, go call the stone golem here," his actions seemingly exceeding the creature's threshold of calmness. Without much delay, there was a loud noise, and Yuhan looked bewildered. Yuhan anticipated the approaching danger and nervously warned Sia, as the ground began to shake, urging her to move away quickly. The ground started to crumble, revealing a deep abyss ahead. Yuhan reacted swiftly to the imminent danger, loudly reminding Sia as the ground trembled, urging her to move aside. Yuhan's face turned pale, thinking, could it appear right beneath our feet? Countless large rocks began to fall from above Yuhan and Sia, causing Sia to scream out. Those rocks fell to the ground with great force. It turned out to be a giant stone foot, now landing right beside the two of them, the wind blowing fiercely. The stone creature appeared extremely fierce, its eyes gleaming. Suddenly, the system sound rang out, announcing the appearance of the level 60 stone golem, a huge automated machine created by Deborah as a guard to protect the dungeon. The appearance of the stone golem left Sia stunned and speechless, as she hesitantly asked, "Can we hunt down this one?" Yuhan, now calmer, responded confidently, saying, "Of course, if we stick to the plan." Having said that, he rapidly approached the golem at lightning speed, reaching the creature's feet in a second. Behind them, Sia raised her bow defensively, saying, "I'll back you up." The stone golem was alert to all, with the chubby mouse now clinging to its head. Sia's arrows flew towards it, reducing its power by 40. The eyes of the stone golem immediately became fierce. As the system sound echoed, the giant stone golem, level 60, was ready for battle, a towering figure created by Deborah to safeguard the dungeon. It roared angrily, throwing a fistful of rocks down. The blow sent Sia flying. Yuhan quickly came to help Sia. He rushed in and grabbed a sword preparing to attack. Yuhan boldly called out to Golem, "You rock-headed fellow, it's me, your opponent." Standing in front of the large golem, Yuhan was like a grain of sand in the desert, but he was not intimidated by his small stature. Yuhan slashed at Golem, saying, "Fight me." However, moments later, Yuhan's spirit faltered and desperation set in, as the attack from Golem drained his strength too much. He cried out, "I was the one attacking, why am I the one getting hurt?" Seizing the opportunity, Golem rushed towards Yuhan and threw a punch. Yuhan dodged the blow quickly, jumping up as Golem's punch hit the ground, sending dust and rocks flying. At this critical moment, Yuhan's power significantly decreased. He silently cried out, "My jumping ability is lacking. My stats are lower than I thought." Yuhan hesitated, strategizing. In order to defeat Golem, he knew he had to climb onto its head. But before Yuhan could come up with a plan, Golem raised its hand, preparing for the next attack. In a moment of danger, Yuhan suddenly saw an arrow on Golem's hand and thought, "Wait, it's an arrow." Yuhan immediately smiled, thinking, "Yes, it seems like you've come up with a strategy." Sia ran from afar. Intending to save him, she shouted, "Zig, come here," and Yuhan replied, "Stay there." Golem just fell to the ground, causing a loud explosion. Yuhan continued to jump around, saying, "Shoot at the joints on that golem." Without hesitation, Sia followed suit. She shouted, "Got it," and then she aimed her bow and shot arrows. Each arrow continuously struck the monster, weakening its strength by 40. Decrease by 30. Decrease by 16. Finally, Golem suddenly stood still. It seemed unable to attack anyone anymore. Sia observed it from below, while Yuhan was still puzzled. After drinking water, Yuhan woke up feeling refreshed. At the same time, an idea popped into his head. He said, "Great, I've figured it out." Yuhan flew around Golem with a sword in hand. He thought that the weakness of a golem is its core. Finalizing his plan, Yuhan flipped upside down in midair, gripping the sword tightly in his hand. Golem also looked up at him. Yuhan thrust his sword into Golem's head. He had found its weakness. At this moment he looked extremely cool. Yuhan chuckled contentedly, saying triumphantly, "It's done." His sword pierced into Golem's head, causing the surrounding area to shatter. A bright light slowly seeped through. The sound of the skull cracking echoed. He thought everything had been resolved, so he said, "Now let's go collect our reward." He looked up to enjoy this moment of achievement. But before he could savor it for long, Golem suddenly raised its head, reaching out to hold its head, growling loudly. Yuhan's eyes widened in shock. He let go of the sword and fell to the ground, still not understanding what had just happened. Everything happened too fast. Luckily, Sia caught him. It wasn't the hero saving the damsel in distress, but the damsel saving the hero. Worried, Sia asked, "Are you okay?" Yuhan was still in shock. He stammered, "Thanks to you for saving me." Sia told him, "I will fight it. You go regain your strength somewhere." As a man, Yuhan couldn't leave Sia alone. He replied with confusion, "What do you mean? I'm almost done. What are you saying?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yuhan's eyes widened. The golem revived. Standing up menacingly with a loud roar, Yuhan puzzledly said, "What's going on?" At the same time, the system speaks up, the raging giant stone golem. When the core of the giant stone golem is damaged and cannot be controlled anymore, its attack power and speed will be enhanced. The golem's eyes glowed red, it opened its large mouth and growled. It continued to strike Yuhan with a mental blow, but luckily this time he managed to dodge it. Yuhan held his chest and gasped, thinking, this shouldn't be happening. Yuhan didn't give up and continued flying towards Golem to fight, thinking, I have underestimated this dungeon too much. Because he had swept through it countless times. Why? Yuhan kept getting hit by Golem's attacks, falling to the ground. But he didn't give up, seemingly trying harder when on the brink of failure. His thoughts continued, perhaps because this is the first time I've seen an attack like this. But in the days when he was still Bart's. I understand, when he was blocking Golem's punch, at that dangerous moment, he let himself become negative again. The shattered pieces of memory shattered. He and Bart's could no longer unite. He affirmed to himself, I am no longer Bart's. He slowly lost himself. Yuhan knelt down exhausted, realizing that his efforts were in vain. He also had no strength to fight. Right behind him, Golem was rushing towards him. Then suddenly, a voice rang out. A burst of power hit Golem, shattering it. Rocks flew past Yuhan's face. He looked bewildered. Sia had saved him. She tightly held his hand and pulled him away, leading the way, this way. Yuhan was surprised. He didn't say a word, just stared at Sia. Seeing Yuhan like that, Sia explained, your HP is dangerously low. Find a hiding place to rest, run away quickly. The Golem's eyes were getting redder. It looked at them with eyes full of hatred. At this moment, Sia and Yuhan had hidden behind a large rock, out of Golem's sight. Both breathing heavily from exhaustion, Sia said, I have checked before but the exit is still closed. As predicted, the only way out of here is to defeat the boss. I tried to shoot arrows into the core you attacked, but it had no effect. Yuhan is exhausted now, his face pale. Sia sees no reaction from him and calls, are you listening to me, Zig? Yuhan, dizzy, he is too tired. He says, it's over. Sia looks puzzled. He continues, This is the first time I've seen this, it must be a hidden monster that only appears under specific conditions. We need a player who can deal damage to it or come up with an attack strategy, but with our levels, this is too much. It's best to study how to minimize damage. Sia replies anxiously, really, is that so? Yuhan sighs, he seems completely helpless against Golem. I can't do anything. My level is too low to come up with a counterattack strategy to this new attack. Sia stands up, she responds, no. Sia's face brightens, she smiles, like the sun giving strength to others. She says, if we don't know, we just need to try to find out. Accepting a challenge that ends in failure will be better, right? Yuhan hesitates, but with our levels, Sia immediately interrupts him. I'm level 42, you're level 38, combined we're level 80. Yuhan is shocked, he protests, that's not logical. Sia responds warmly, if we cooperate, I'm sure we'll find a way. Finishing her words, Sia quickly runs off, leaving behind 2 sentences, hurry up, come here, I'm waiting for you. Yuhan is stunned. He raises his hand in an attempt to stop her but it's too late. Back in the real world, someone is tucking in the blanket by Yuhan's feet. Yuhan bends down, worried, listening, I heard you dropped out of school. He advises earnestly, suddenly stopping without saying a word and dropping out of school. What will the family do? Mother is crying. Yuhan remains silent, not reacting to those words. Seeing that the previous sentence had no effect, Yuhyun squats down and talks to him. Do you remember, when you were little you used to beat up the kids who bullied your sister? Back then you were taller than them so they couldn't do anything to you. But now it's different. Down below the blanket is Yuhan listening intently, his face bruised and chipped. Yuhyun continues, you're skinny, hunched over, looking a bit weird. You're not good at studying, the only thing you're good at is playing games, right? Upon hearing this, Yuhan wants to argue but immediately throws off the blanket, sits up, and says, hey, what do you mean by that? Yuhyun stands up, he continues, pay attention to the people around you. Brother. Yuhan listens, frozen. I don't know what's going on, but you can't share with me or your friends. Then he says, but you don't have any friends. Yuhan behind him appears annoyed. This straight kid. Yuhyun coldly turns away, no longer caring about his brother. You may not believe it, but there are many things you can't handle on your own. Yuhyun leaves Yuhan's room, leaving the door wide open, his voice echoing, go outside to eat. Mom made kimchi soup, then. I'll wait for you, hurry up. On the ground, a burst of power splits the ground in 2. Someone has performed magic, extraordinary. Of course, the golem was hit by that attack. This time its points decreased significantly, -97, 2 people said, excellent. The system sound rang out as a reminder, not enough HP, please take a break. Not enough MP, please take a break. Not enough endurance, please add more food. Sia smiled and said, this is my limit. The golem unleashed its ultimate move again. The attack was about to hit Sia, but Yuhan quickly pulled her away. By coincidence, when she moved was the moment the attack passed by Sia's hair. If Yuhan had been a little slower, everything would have been doomed. The ground couldn't bear the pressure from the punch and cracked with a loud noise. The ground was all rubble, with thick smoke and dust. Sia worriedly called for Yuhan next to her. Zig, Yuhan replied, thank you for extending my time. He stood up strong, I have fully recovered both HP and endurance. Yuhan regained his cheerful and excited spirit as before. He said, you were right, no matter what, we have to fight to the fullest. Yuhan prepared to attack in a defensive stance. He said, eat 1, stagger to none. The golem reached out to grab him. Yuhan couldn't bear it, she rushed over. She cut the golem's hands in half, reducing its strength by 180 points. Another blow to the face. Yuhan was surprised and thought, it works, could its Achilles heel be the hoe? According to the system, the hoe has no attacking power at all. What is this? Yuhan thrust the hoe straight into the golem's body. But no matter how hard she struck, it had no effect. She wondered, why did it have no effect? Was it an error earlier? No, without any system warnings, it was still within the game's limits. Yuhan furrowed her brow as everything was progressing too difficultly. She pondered, what conditions are needed to make this work? Suddenly Sia shouted, above, be careful above. The golem's clenched fist suddenly sped towards her. Yuhan could only look up without reacting in time. The punch was covered by an overwhelming and majestic source of power. Yuhan's eyes widened, she remembered. A voice echoed in her head, Zig. She remembered Smith's words, ore is a synthesis of many different materials. When they come together due to pressure, there are still some vulnerabilities between them. At her current level she still couldn't see. If she attacked accurately into those openings, extraordinary things could be dug up. The hose suddenly released a surge of high-voltage electricity. A loud shout rang out, "Dig!" At this moment she was thrusting the hose straight into the golem's fist. Two sources of power were fiercely battling each other. Boom! A loud explosion, the golem was shot far away. Yuhan approached. The golem had lost an arm. Yuhan happily said, "Finally did it." Yuhan's eyes showed ruthlessness. She smirked and said, "Your weakness." The power surge you unleashed earlier enveloped the entire body of the golem. You cast another spell, digging. This time, the entire body of the golem is completely shattered. You fly up, surrounded by large flying rocks. The fat mouse also loses its balance and falls to the ground. The golem is now only a head, its mouth still moves, it roars in pain. The system sound rings out. You have successfully mined and received 10 amethyst stones. Your skill proficiency has increased by 30. Sia, watching from afar, is shocked and exclaims in disbelief. Defeat the boss with skillful manipulation. Yuhan looks at the golem, missing limbs and only a head left, feeling pity. He bows his head, feeling melancholic. He points his finger towards the golem. Suddenly, Yuhan chuckles. A surge of power surrounds him and flows into his hand. He delivers a final blow to that golem. At the same time, the system announces that the team of Zig and Sia have defeated the enraged giant golem. Zig looked at the mineral rock in his hand, pondering in his head, so the ability to see the veins could also be applied in mining. It seems that these veins are too blurred to notice before focusing on them. Next, Zig walked holding the mineral rock in his hand, thinking in his head, but after all, he had already hunted the boss, he was right. Suddenly Sia's voice interrupted his thoughts. Sia said, "It's amazing." She walked over to shake Zig's shoulder, her voice excited. "You just hunted a boss with that crafting skill. How did you do it?" Her eyes lit up eagerly asking, "I also want to know." Zig laughed satisfactorily. "Oh, that's trade secret." He said, "I can't easily reveal it to you." Their figures gradually faded. The interruption was also the moment the two disappeared back into the quiet space as in the beginning. The scene shifted to a strange room, where there were large wooden saw blades, the sound of the motor stuck. Next to it were large glass pipes, inside containing green liquid. These pipes ran along a tightly linked chain system. Zig and Sia were relocated here by the system. The two of them were still leaning against each other, observing drowsily. They had not fully regained consciousness. Sia looked around and said, "Where is this?" Zig casually said, "Because I just finished hunting the boss, it must be the reward room." Zig continued, "Or maybe this." At this point he turned around to observe the surroundings, wondering in his head, "Where is this place?" Sia stood up. She walked to the glass pipes to examine them more closely. Sia said, "Maybe this is where they spawn mobs." Zig leaned on his chin, thinking, the reward room of Deborah's dungeon doesn't look like this, as this Deborah's workshop in the rumor. He continued to think, they brought us here if we hunted a giant raging golem. This is the first time I've seen this strange equipment. While Zig was pondering, Sia was thrilled, moving from one place to another to examine. A strange chest caught her attention. Sia said, "There's a chest over there." Zig's eyes lit up. At this moment, he was only thinking about the reward. Zig joyfully said, "A chest, so this is really the reward room." The system announcement sounded. The magic glove enhances defense power by 3, magic attack power by 3. Zig put on the glove and accepted. It's better than nothing. He continued to look inside the chest. Zig said, "Next," holding the instruction sheet in his hand. He carefully read it. The system voice announced, "Instruction sheet 1. After completing the plan, you can learn how to create black iron that Deborah the witch created." Looking at the instruction sheet, Zig's face turned pale. He thought, a robot? Crazy, can I just start making it? Zig raised the wooden chest high, excitedly cheered, finally found it. Opening the chest, Zig held the item in his hand, sounding bored. This is just a common item, how disappointing. The system announcement sounded. The wizard's metal glove enhances defense power by 3, magic power by 3. Zig put on the glove and said, "Better than nothing." Then he continued to see what was inside the chest. Zig said, "Next," holding the instruction sheet in his hand. He carefully read it. The system voice announced, "Instruction Plan 1. After completing the plan you can learn to make the black iron that Deborah the witch created." Looking at the instruction sheet, Zig's face turned pale. He thought, a robot? Insane, can I just start making it? Zig continued to read. The necessary construction materials are alloy grade 5, production chain grade 3, summoning technique grade 7. He tossed it aside with a bored tone, just a piece of paper. Taking the last item in the chest, Zig asked, "Is this a skill book?" The system announcement sounded. The hero Carwin's notebook, notes left by Carwin. This is the person who defeated the witch Deborah. A blacksmith reading this book will learn the skills grain and arm break. The system explained further. The grain skill has the lowest compatibility requirements with the blacksmith profession. Completing the Mount Lankle mission. Crafting level 6. Weapon destruction skill has the absorption condition of the mining skill to defeat the giant raging golem skill level 7. After reading the information, Zig exclaimed in surprise, "I have already used the grain skill." He continued to read the remaining information, saying, "I don't know anything, but defeating the golems of the witch is not an easy task, especially the giant stone golem. But then I heard an important hint from a blacksmith. All ores are composed of various materials combined with each other, and therefore, there will be gaps between them." His words paved the way for me to defeat the golem. I upgraded my abilities and saw the nature of all materials and gained the ability to enhance that even more. The grain skill, when mastered, allowed me to learn how to break ores and weapons. Reading to this point, Zig's eyes lit up. He exclaimed excitedly, "The ability to destroy weapons, unbelievable." He continued to read Carwin's diary. Carwin recorded that the battle with the witch Deborah is not over, she will return one day with a powerful army. That's why I couldn't destroy the witch's cave but left it as it is. I hope that those who come after me will resist her exploitation and find a way to fight Deborah's army. Zig pondered over the information he had gathered, thinking, so the battle with Deborah is not over. I didn't expect only a blacksmith can learn the skills of the hero Carwin. Sia walked to Zig and interrupted his thoughts, saying, "Don't you like that reward?" Zig replied contentedly, "No, I really like it." His mind is now floating on cloud 9. Zig told himself, "It's even better than liking it, because I learned the hidden skill." Upon hearing this, Sia laughed and said, "Shall we go then?" I searched around but found nothing. Zig looked behind Sia. A mess was there. He must be shocked not knowing what this girl did to them. The two soon left the room. Shortly after, stepping out of the store, Sia stretched her shoulders joyfully. Feeling like she hadn't seen the sky in ages, Zig thoughtfully said, "Because it took the whole day, even in real life, it must have been at least 8 hours." Sia was surprised. "Really? Let's go quickly then." Zig hesitated, opening his mouth, wondering what to do now. The sound of Sia's voice, "How old are you?" Zig pointed to himself and replied, "I'm 20. Sia extended her hand forward, saying, "Well then we are the same age." She cheerfully spoke up, "From now on we are friends." Zig asked in surprise, "What are you planning to do?" trying to shake my hand. Sia hesitated and said, "No, I mean, that's right, they shake hands to become friends from now on." Sia spoke up, "I've added you to my messenger contacts, we will meet again, I will contact you after the exam is over." Zig stood in shock, asking, "Exam?" Sia happily explained, "I am about to take my midterm exam, so I want to finish the dungeon here first. Even so, it will probably only take 2 more weeks until I'm done. Today was fun." Zig looked at Sia's delighted expression. He sighed silently and murmured, "What does that mean? Oh well, I just wanted to conquer this dungeon because I can't play games anymore." Sia looked at Zig's puzzled face. She hit him hard and exclaimed, "Hey, why are you sad?" This action by Sia was so powerful that Zig's neck broke. It's true, the prettier the girl, the harder to understand. Sia started to exit the game and messaged, "People might think we'll never meet again from now on, but I said it's only 2 weeks, time goes by quickly, right?" Suddenly, the system alerted that Zig had died. Sia had killed another player. She would now be a murderer. Sia looked back at Zig in surprise. She exclaimed in shock, "No way, he's dead." Zig pleaded, "Sia, no, can you please keep my equipment for me?" Sia panicked and shouted, "My name turned red. What's happening?" Zig tried to calm her down. Stay calm, stay calm." Sia cried out, "What if it doesn't disappear?" Zig also helplessly said, "Just pick up my equipment first, it will take some time for us to resolve everything." Daily life continued as usual. The sound of a delivery person echoed, "Delivery here." A delivery truck stopped in front of a small house in the bustling urban area. The unnamed package was opened and dropped off at the designated spot. Johann was currently immersed in the game, thinking about what had happened. A week had passed since the golem stone hunting expedition. After activating the skill, Zig focused on training the grain skill multiple times. And the success rate of the crafting and repair skill had increased to 100% when using it. Not only that, the quality of the equipment was also improving day by day. So, in 1 week, Zig had become a famous master in Baldan. Zig sighed, "It feels even more real than before. Someone is calling out to you, Zig." Zig was drawn in by this voice. Outside the door, many people had lined up early to bring their equipment for Zig to repair. Someone shouted, "Help me repair my equipment." Zig hesitated and waved his hand to refuse, saying, "I have a small request. I can't work today." Disappointed voices chimed in. "What?" Arguments broke out loudly. Someone said, "At least repair mine, I'm in a hurry." A stranger's voice rang out. "Hey, the Slime King appeared in the Urk Valley, we have to go there immediately." Everyone stopped arguing. Their faces lit up with excitement and their eyes gleamed. Continuous sounds came out. "The Slime King, a rare mob has appeared, really?" Someone shouted, "Let's go," and everyone immediately rushed to the Urk Valley. Now, there was no more noise and arguments. In the deserted street, only two figures remained, Zig and the stranger. Zig frowned and thought, the Slime King never appears in the Urk Valley. The stranger smiled friendly and said, "Finally, we can have a peaceful conversation. Zig, I'm here to recruit you." At this moment in the Kong Yuhan study room still kept sitting earnestly writing something in the book. His hand wrote fast as if he never got tired. A friend in the class saw that and thought what was wrong with him. How could he write so fast? Indeed, he is not an ordinary guy. In fact, in Kong Yuhan's book, he did not do homework but drew a mind map. He thought, it has been more than a month since the day Bart's was hacked. Imagining his iron armor, he thought he had become famous but still couldn't find any clues about the mastermind. Because most of Bart's equipment is high level, the leveling up only happened in a moment, and he was looking for ways to do it quickly. After some thoughts, Kong Yuhan completed the mind map. He thought that was the reason why he appeared on the Nisark Trading Road Network, exploring the mission. Kong Yuhan pushed his glasses and also thought that if he succeeded in this mission and this trading circle was established, there would be a dramatic change in Arpedia to the point where it needed to be updated. Kong Yuhan was determined to think that he couldn't miss out on such an interesting mission. He thought of himself as someone who had just been informed of by the king of Barkas. Imagining everyone moving on the small road in the forest, he explained it included pushing the recipient to quickly establish an exchange route system for traders with the dwarf nation of Nisark. 2 hands from the 2 kings of our 2 countries were clasped together, he thought, because the person who gave this mission was a king. According to many rumors, many people predicted that the experience and rewards would be great. In his head, the image of a dwarf in Nisark holding a hammer appeared. He thought further that Nisark was land belonging to the tribe of blacksmiths, dwarfs, so this was a great opportunity that he couldn't refuse. Kong Yuhan rested his hand on the table to conclude the issue. Here was his system's proficiency. His reputation and level were too low. If he still stubbornly tried to do it now, then perhaps he would fail clearly. Kong Yuhan scratched his head, wondering what he should do. His friend next to him saw a series of Kong Yuhan's expressions and concluded indeed he was not quite normal. The man put his hand on his chest and said, "Maybe I should start by introducing myself." He continued by saying, "I am the leader of Baldan branch under the Gold Union, Dylan. I came to introduce you, who has become famous as the reincarnation Prince of Baldan." The corners of his eyes curved up as he smiled. Dylan said, "I will make sure you are compensated fairly, so please come with me." Kong Yuhan thought for a moment and said, "But shouldn't I at least try and make a request?" Dylan waved his hand and said, "Oh, excuse me. Did you hear what I said?" Kong Yuhan replied, "What? I didn't hear anything." Dylan, slightly annoyed, said, "Can't you clearly hear every word I am saying right now?" Kong Yuhan turned away thinking, "I'm not interested in the union, so please leave quickly." Dylan chuckled and replied, "Zig here probably doesn't have much understanding about us, the Gold Union." Kong Yuhan shrugged indifferently and said, "I understand very well that it's different. It's a place that always ranks second among the unions." Dylan laughed bitterly and said, "Zig, even if it is second, it's still great. Do you understand that, right?" He continued, "And even though we are a second-ranking union, it is not wrong at the current time, but it won't be long from now, we will rise to the top. What do you think, Zig? Do you want to become the most successful person in Arpedia with us?" Dylan continued talking incessantly, "We are currently preparing a joining reward for you." Kong Yuhan interrupted and twisted his mouth. Dylan didn't understand, so he continued, "As I predicted. Let me explain the joining steps." A moment later, Dylan understood what Kong Yuhan was saying and looked surprised. Kong Yuhan said, "Even if I join a union, the way blacksmiths are treated is too obvious. Oh, we will be seen as elephants, not invited to hunting parties. We only exist to scavenge, while all the products we produce will be exchanged at the closest value to the production fuel price." Kong Yuhan continued, "What makes you think you will be different from them?" Dylan smiled slyly and replied, "Unions like that do exist." Dylan leaned on his chin and thought. He said, "What do you think about becoming business partners?" Kong Yuhan was surprised at the idea of a partner. Dylan smiled and said, "Yes, although we normally only offer invitations like this to high-level individuals." Looking at the union emblem on the screen, Dylan continued to explain that it wasn't difficult. You just need to register on the homepage of our union. Then you need to regularly keep in touch with me, your representative manager. Dylan continued saying, unlike other members, you don't need to take any responsibility here at all. Moreover, each time you provide equipment for the union or participate in repair campaigns, we will pay you with money or information. You can try starting like that, and if the union makes you satisfied, you can officially join us at any time. And if you still can't enjoy this union, you simply need to voice your refusal to cooperate with us within the limit of 6 months. Kong Yuhan was still absorbing the information Dylan had just spoken. He turned back and forth, still not fully understanding that information. After a while of thinking, he finally absorbed it. He placed his hand on Dylan's shoulder and said, all right. Dylan had a mocking face thinking about Kong Yuhan's idiocy. Kong Yuhan then asked instead if he could listen to his plea. Dylan asks for a plea again. The clear blue sky, a horse-drawn carriage constantly moving forward. A dialogue appears on the screen. The person asks to join as a partner. He continues to say, I am wondering if we are giving too many special benefits to a new beginner blacksmith. Are you sure your intuition says he will become an excellent blacksmith? Dylan responds that it is not based on my intuition, but based on my experience. The other person asks about the experience. Dylan responds, yes. I have seen a low-level person suddenly gaining healing abilities, and even better crafting abilities than before. The player's name is Guirion. The other person is slightly surprised that you mean Guirion, the one who holds rank 1 of the server. Dylan responds that he is indeed the best master when a solo player can do business in the hundreds of millions. The other person then understands that if you have said so much, I will wait for your results, no matter what. Why did you have to exchange all the gold coins you had for the incentive reward? What happened? Dylan smiles and replies, oh that. As a reward, he asked for something else, so I chose to reduce the price by 90,000 gold coins. Perhaps my nature is like a businessman. The other person asks something else. On the wall is posted a notice of recognized exploration team list. Kong Yuhan looks up at it. The name Zig appears on the list. In Kong Yuhan's heart blooms beautifully, he has been chosen. He continues to think even though he has time limitations, the scale of a large validated alliance is very impressive. Although not mentioned, I still offer 10,000 gold coins as an incentive reward. Kong Yuhan thinks that later on he may start to make some strange skill requests, thinking he shakes his head in denial. Kong Yuhan stretches out and relaxes away from the crowd. He thinks that no matter what, he should prepare for the task. Now at the east side of Baldwin Square, Joe's bakery shop. The man holding a sword in his hand. Guilford is fierce. He is the leader of one of the strongest mercenary guilds, the Chain Guild, and also a famous player ranked 45 across the server. Looking at the man in front of him, the people in the bakery shop all think he is now waiting in line in a bakery shop. The employee's voice rings out inviting the next customer. The man finally mutters that it's his turn, only to see the item he wanted to buy is sold out. The man is astonished and asks how the biscuits have been sold out. This has never happened before. The employee points to the other side, saying the guest there has bought all the biscuits. The employee continues to say the man can try asking that person. The man turns back thinking about the biscuits. Immediately he grabs the corner of that person's clothes and says this. He says, it seems you have reserved too many biscuits already. Why are you still greedy to buy them all? The man sees Kong Yuhan and is surprised. Yuhan doesn't understand what's going on. His innocent eyes, with a piece of bread still in his mouth, a few crumbs stuck on his cheek, his hands holding a stack of bread high above his head, a voice full of anger echoed, your house. His hands tightly gripped Yuhan's shirt. Guilford, filled with anger, his face darkened, veins popping on his forehead. He shouted angrily, you miserable blacksmith. Yuhan, now extremely scared, his face pale with fear, a drop of sweat slowly rolling down from his forehead. He stuttered, you are. He innocently looked at the man and said, who are you? A large stone suddenly fell on his head. Guilford stiffened, standing frozen, speechless. His words seemed to turn him into stone. He cursed, you despicable fool. A bag of bread fell down. Guilford burst into anger like a raging fire, his eyes wide, his face grimacing, teeth clenched, looking very scary. He yelled, you've ruined my precious sword. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his fist towards Yuhan, lunging forward. Yuhan unexpectedly stepped back, causing the packaged bread in his hands to scatter. As he struck, Yuhan dodged. Suddenly, a green light surrounded him. Yuhan looked ahead in astonishment. Guilford had disappeared, now only a green light was in front of him. A green notification appeared, saying, player Guilford has logged out of Apedia Online. Yuhan panicked and exclaimed, "What?" The other 4 men had no idea what was happening, their faces bewildered. Someone shouted, "Captain," then the room fell silent. Cursing from a man, "You miserable man. Why do you always talk back? I told you what to do, and when I come back from the market, those dirty dishes and utensils are still not cleaned. And you're still playing that useless game, huh?" Song Tae-soo listened quietly and frowned. His wife, furious, stood with her hands on her hips, leaning forward. Her brows furrowed, mouth opening to show her fangs. She confronted her angry husband. "Even with that, withdrawing from the game, you said what to me, and let me explain." The door creaked open. A voice from outside said, "Hold on, dear, listen to his explanation." "I can't turn my elbow in that direction." A crossbow hung on the wall. The voices of the woman and the man still not ceasing. "No, but that doesn't mean you can turn your foot towards me either. Honey, please listen to my explanation." On the table were 2 gold cups placed together, and a painful loud shout rang out. In the room, a girl sat watching something on the computer. On the screen was a face with an elongated mouth and lifeless eyes beside a pink bed, and in the middle of the room was a round table with 2 books. Jisoo chuckled, her hand on her forehead. "Oh my, haven't I told Dad how to be quiet when I study? All right, endure 1 more week, just this week." On the blue board, the meeting place was marked as Barca's Gate. Both sides of the road were filled with trees, and in the middle of the road, dozens of people stood there, along with a few horses. Amongst the crowd, 2 men were talking to each other. One man asked in surprise, "Hey, what's that over there?" The territorial guild also participated. A tall man was sitting on a horse, surrounded by several soldiers. Someone said, "So the rumor of his participation is true. Easy mission, isn't it?" Guilford furrowed his brow, solemnly stating, "Everyone, pay attention. Find him at all costs." The soldiers responded in unison to Guilford's command, "Understood, Captain." He recalled the image of Yuhan chewing bread, crumbs sticking on his face, and remembered how he had grabbed all the food. Surely that despicable blacksmith would also join this journey. Then a voice echoed, "Got it." Yuhan absent-mindedly reached into his pocket, gazing elsewhere. Legis behind him enthusiastically proclaimed, "We have essential items for sale for the mission at low prices." Seeing Yuhan walk past her stall, she called out, "Wait, Mr. Blacksmith over there, have you ever had a moment, at some point, where you were suddenly blocked by a monster?" He paused to think before answering, well, but she continued, "So you have encountered it, right?" She raised an eyebrow, continuing, "If it were me, I would think it would be great to have at least 1 survival skill for each crafting class, don't you agree?" Feeling flustered, he hesitated before responding, "Well, yeah," silently thinking, "She's a street vendor, isn't she?" Ignoring her, he rushed to another place. A bright shiny gold ring, with a large red gem on its face, flanked by 2 smaller ones, was displayed with a sign reading 10,000 grams. Excitedly, she continued, "This is the item I highly recommend you use, a gold ring that will allow you to teleport instantly for only 10,000 gold coins." Yuhan was so excited that he salivated, holding the ring in one hand and his purse in the other. He thought, a teleporting ring for only 10,000 gold coins, ridiculously cheap. Should I buy it? But even then, 10,000 gold is still a lot. Clutching his purse tightly, he reminded himself to think carefully if he really needed it. Suddenly, he exclaimed, "Oh my goodness, I can't control my body." He turned around, Legis behind him clasping his hands in excitement. "Thank you for purchasing. May luck be on your side for your journey." Yuhan was also pleased, holding the ring in one hand, the other on his chin, contentedly saying, "Well, that's fine. At least with this price, even if I sell it, I won't lose money." It seemed that he realized something, looking at the ring, his face starting to sweat. He let out a gasp, "Ha! System notification, teleportation ring, a ring imbued with magic that allows the wearer to teleport. 4 seconds after activation, the wearer will instantly teleport 20 meters in the specified direction. Note: the ring will disappear after first use, immediate teleportation." Legis touched the large bag on the cart, she smiled gleefully, satisfied, and said, "Today's profit is really good." Someone approached slowly, but she continued nonchalantly, "As I predicted, Baldwin is really a place for fools to wander around, it's so easy to pickpocket their money." Yuhan walked over from a distance, speaking as he approached, "Hey, you scammer." He was burning with anger, his face red, shouting, "Give me back my money now, you villain." Legis was annoyed by his words. "Ha! What nonsense is this beggar saying?" Furious, he approached and said, "Look at this, don't pretend to be innocent in front of me." He was furious, face red, pale, mouth wide open, shouting, "How dare you sell this junk to me?" She raised her hands, with a condescending expression, saying, "So what? This is really a ring that has teleportation abilities." Yuhan exclaimed loudly, "Do you think I'm so stupid that using 4 seconds to teleport 20 meters is basic teleportation, you vile scammer?" Legis retorted unhappily, "Scammer? My full and glorious name is Legis, legit and legal, you dim-witted fool." The two angrily argued, gripping each other's hands tightly, as if they were about to fight. Yuhan said, "If Legis is legit then I'm illegit illegal, a perfect name for a scam artist like you." Someone noticed their argument and intervened, saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" The soldier said, "We will depart soon, so you should prepare to leave." Yuhan replied resentfully, "Excuse me, sir, this scammer." Before he could finish his sentence, Legis quickly ran to the man, much to Yuhan's surprise. She hugged the man tightly by the arm, and said, "This is how it happened, The man was holding something in his hand, and Legis continued, "I was just conducting legal business as you can see, but then suddenly this guy appeared." Legis discreetly handed something to the man, who said, "Ah, I understand now." Immediately, he pointed the nose of the gun towards Yuhan, who was sitting on the ground. Legis wickedly laughed as the man loudly said, "You scum criminal! How dare you harm this innocent girl?" Yuhan lowered his head in despair, pointing his other hand at Legis, tears streaming down his face. "What do you mean? Is that the person you need?" Before he could finish his sentence, the man scolded him, leaving him speechless. The man angrily threatened, quickly apologized to the girl, saying, "You will be punished by helping this woman push the merchandise. Otherwise, I will have to remove you from the list of adventurers." Legis heard this and chuckled, covering her mouth in amusement. The man growled, "Understood?" Yuhan was shocked, speechless. Legis smirked, a sly smile on her face. System notification. Legis, level 55, merchant. On the bustling street, everyone passing by. Legis wore a victorious smile. While Yuhan was in tears, a pitiful sight that cannot be fully described. And Guilford appeared tense, as if he was waiting for something. A cloaked figure in a black robe leaned against a large tree trunk, holding a large bird in his hand, looking incredibly mysterious. The figure placed a piece of paper into the vial tied to the bird's leg. The mysterious person gestured, and the bird flew off in response. In the clear blue sky, a bird flew straight, its wings soaring. On the blue sign, it was written, "Treasury of the Kingdom of Brodin." It was a magnificent architectural structure, showcasing its vastness and grandeur, and the bird flew towards it. It landed at the window. Bowing its head and spreading its wings in a semblance of a bow, someone said, "So what we were worried about has already happened." The piece of paper in the hand of someone began to burn out slowly, as they said, "The Kingdom of Barkas has sent a team of adventurers, making things worse. Half of our country's finances come from intermediary trading." An old man extended one hand behind his back, holding a burning piece of paper in the other hand. He said, "Nevertheless, we are still at peace with the Kingdom of Barkas, we cannot openly oppose them. If you were in my position, you would understand." He chuckled, a wicked grin on his face. He covered himself, pulling the cloth over his mouth to reveal a sinister smile, saying, "Certainly, the system displays a purple screen, Kira, rank 89, assassin. The green forest sleeps peacefully under the calm dark sky." Kong Yuhan lay on the ground, his eyes wide, breathing heavily and muttering, "How did it come to this?" Legis stood beside, nagging constantly, "Hey, slave number 1, what are you doing? Hurry up and set up the tent." Yuhan thought to himself, this misfortune. She ordered Yuhan in a very annoying way. Legis said, "I have to log out for a while, so set up the tent quickly and then go find food for us, understood?" Seeing Yuhan not responding, Legis urged him, "Answer me, slave." Yuhan stood up, clasping his hands on his knees, and said, "You really?" Yuhan, angry, wrinkled and flushed, his emotions exploded under Legis' pressure. He yelled, "You're going too far, treating me like a slave." Yuhan clenched his fists, his face red with anger, his emotions bursting before Legis' coercion. He shouted, "I can't take it anymore." Legis shouted, "Where are the soldiers?" Without hesitation, Yuhan changed from standing to crawling instantly. Yuhan's face turned pale. He rambled unconsciously, reluctantly saying, "This piece of land is quite flat. This place will be suitable for setting up a tent, right? Then like this, and then do this." Legis chuckled triumphantly, saying, "You should have behaved like this from the beginning. While I'm gone, please arrange everything properly, understood?" Legis logged out of the game. Yuhan cried bitterly with tears streaming down his face. he thought to himself, if it wasn't for the mission. In the midst of a large forest, Yuhan angrily cried out, "Damn it!" Yuhan had set up the tent and the cooking fire. He was sitting enjoying his dinner, eating and thinking, after encountering that scammer, why do I have to endure so much? Suddenly a call came from somewhere. Hey, the blacksmith. Yuhan turned abruptly to look. Someone threw a broken sword in front of Yuhan and said, I heard you're the best repairman in Baldan, right? In front of Yuhan were a group of fierce-looking men, led by a man wielding a large axe with a scar on his eye. He said to Yuhan, fix this for me. While Yuhan was still chewing food, he thought in his head, are these guys from the Crimson Lions? Yuhan replied hesitantly, is that so suddenly? The man with a sinister face taunted Yuhan, what's wrong? I heard you're the king of the blacksmiths in Baldan, but you don't seem very confident. Ha! He thought to himself, I'll provoke him as much as possible and drag him in front of the leader. Yuhan set the bowl down. Preparing to stand up, Yuhan said, okay. He thought in his head, I'm eating, so annoying. Yuhan widened his eyes, using his skill, grain. In an instant, the broken sword was completely restored. The man from the Crimson Lion stared in disbelief. He seemed unable to believe his eyes. The interface displayed, Dawn Dagger, durability 90 out of 90. Yuhan quietly and calmly climbed into the hammock after fixing the sword, while the others stood in astonishment looking at the sword. They were amazed and exclaimed alternately, oh my, its condition is extremely perfect. The rumor seemed true. Strange, I heard he destroyed the leader's sword. Yuhan read a book while swinging on the hammock. He casually said, hey, if you guys have nothing else to do, can you leave? Can't you see I'm busy reading, old man? The leader was annoyed at being called, old man. He was red with anger, breaking the sword that had just been fixed and shouted, how can you be so indifferent after breaking someone else's weapon? You're really shameless, and besides, I'm not an old man, I'm the same age as you. Yuhan remained calm, speaking sarcastically, what's with this old man? And just now you were the person. Before he could finish his sentence, the other man interrupted, I told you I'm not old, you rascal. He continued to yell, if you don't follow me now, I'll teach you a lesson. Yuhan placed the book down. He said, I remember now. Yuhan jumped off the hammock, teasing the other man. He said, you're the old man I met at the bakery, right? Are you acting like this because I bought all the cookies? The man became furious for being called an old man. He angrily turned red, breaking the repaired weapon and shouted loudly, how can you behave so condescendingly after I destroyed your weapon? You're really shameless, and also, I'm not an old man, we're the same age. Confident as he was, Yuhan quickly took a beating and was tied up and forced down. Guilford appeared, staring at him. Surrounded by members of the Crimson Lions, Yuhan shouted to defend his foolish arrogance, ganging up on me is cheating. Yuhan continued to struggle even though he was tied up. Guilford frowned. He said sternly, hey punk, if you sincerely apologize now, I'll let you go. Yuhan remained defiant. He squinted and retorted to Guilford, what, I lined up and waited to buy with my own money, why should I apologize, get lost. Guilford replied, I'm not talking about the cookies. Yuhan yelled, then why are you doing this? I have never harmed anyone while playing this game, not even once. Guilford, angry, asked him, have you never caused harm? He stood up, looking serious. Guilford said, this is not enough. Guilford called his gang, you guys. Surprisingly, Yuhan was untied. He thought, will you just let me go like this? Yuhan was shocked by something. Guilford suddenly pounced on Yuhan. He intended to attack him. Yuhan was confused and scared. He shouted, wait, what are you doing? Guilford struck the ground with a strong blow. Everything around was affected by his shockwave. Yuhan's face turned pale. He dodged and worried in his mind, no way. Yuhan noticed something on Guilford's hand. He thought to himself, that must be an event item with an attack power of 1. Guilford held a thin stick. The display board showed, Love Stick, attack power 1. He approached Yuhan with a fierce attitude and anger. Guilford said, I will personally teach you a lesson in discipline. Guilford charged at Yuhan with the stick, scornful, the disciplinary lesson has begun. A magical strike was launched by Guilford. In a single blow he knocked everything around away. Yuhan stepped back a few steps. He retaliated, discipline lesson. Ha! This is just unleashing anger on others. Something suddenly rushed towards Yuhan from above. A strike hit Yuhan's head directly, causing the ground to shatter. Yuhan lay flat on the ground. Guilford stood firm and mocked him. I haven't even put my full force into that blow. You are only so capable. Even if I call this a lesson, the difference is too big. Guilford offered Yuhan a way to retreat. He boasted his strength by saying, Then I will set a condition: if you can touch me, even if it's just a hair, I will let you go." Yuhan trembled on the ground. He groaned, "Resilient old man." Gripping the sword tightly, Yuhan responded, "What kind of ridiculous conditions? I'm sure you think you will never be hit by a low-level blacksmith." Yuhan slowly stood up. Gripping the sword in his hand, he said, "That's fine. Whether it's this person or that person, everyone looks down on me." Display board showed, Zig, HP 10 out of 330. Yuhan rushed forward. He charged at Guilford and yelled loudly. The clash of their weapons created loud sounds. Yuhan continuously attacked Guilford and he fought back. Guilford prepared to unleash his skill. Feeling uneasy, Yuhan quickly backed away from him. Guilford thought to himself, for a new recruit, he's not bad at all, he also has some fighting talent. He tightly held the wooden stick, thinking, even so. Yuhan charged straight towards him. Guilford confidently thought, even so, he couldn't overcome the level difference. Kong Yuhan reminisces. Arm break. A skill that can destroy any metal or weapon by targeting the weaknesses of the materials that make it. A prerequisite for learning it is to develop the skill seed to level 7. And today, Kong Yuhan is putting his hand on the ground to sense. Suddenly, an eye emits a very bright blue light. He sees the words appearing on the green screen of the system. It notifies, "Your skill seed has reached level 7. You can learn the arm break skill right now." Finally, I have learned the arm break skill. Kong Yuhan rushes forward shouting loudly. He uses the sword to strike strongly at Guilford's wood sword, breaking it in half. At this moment, he is extremely surprised by the situation unfolding before him, secretly thinking that he has broken his weapon. Kong Yuhan speculates that even though he is a warrior, this is the first time he has seen a skill that can destroy another's weapon, then he drops the sword. Seizing the opportunity when Guilford is distracted, he grabs his shoulder. He jumps up shouting loudly, taking advantage of this opportunity. A decisive move, but things don't go as planned, he slips. Kong Yuhan is secretly terrified, he has leaned back too far. At this moment, the lips of the two touch, creating a very romantic scene. This makes the followers behind, some vomit, some laugh so hard with their mouths open, some blush and sit watching the movie. Even the squirrel holding an acorn drops it in horror. The mother bird, 4 young chicks, and the worm are all shocked. At this point, Guilford is burning with anger. He shouts, "I will kill you. I will definitely kill you, miserable blacksmith." Kong Yuhan starts to feel nauseous. "This is my first kiss." The followers immediately stop Guilford. One of them speaks out, "Commander, at least you have to keep your promise." But now he is very angry, not listening to any orders, silent, "Leave me alone." A follower named Jackal comes to Kong Yuhan, holding a potion, asking, "Hey kid, are you okay? Take this, it's a gift." The system continues to display, "High-level recovery potion, restore all your health." He friendly smiles, "Unexpectedly you really hit the commander. What was that skill earlier?" "This is the first time I've seen a skill that can destroy a weapon. It's one of the blacksmith skills." Kong Yuhan smirks, "I can't reveal anything special about this skill to you." He doesn't inquire any further and wonders, "So have you had any opportunities yet? I think the commander quite likes you, so why don't you join our mercenary guild?" Kong Yuhan, just after drinking the potion, burps and questions, "What, isn't this too bad when you guys unexpectedly failed under my hands? Don't you feel ashamed?" Jackal seems indifferent to his sarcastic remarks, smiles and says, "We also have some faults in this incident, but didn't you just break the commander's weapon and run away? Call it even, and you also called me old man." Kong Yuhan, surprised and not understanding, questions back, "What, I have never ruined anyone's weapon while repairing." But suddenly he remembers the pieces earlier. He realizes, wait, I just did that. Behind him are the sympathetic eyes of the mercenaries and the murderous look of Guilford. Immediately he grabs the commander's hand. Hesitating, he says, "Fine, let's consider it peace, old man." "Oh no, old mate." Guilford becomes more furious. In his efforts to stop him, he shouts, "Who allows you guys to call this peace, Jackal, you useless?" Kong Yuhan blinks and turns away, apologizing for the trouble with the last repair. Guilford helplessly utters, "That's not the issue here, you miserable guy, my weapon." He shouts, shaking the entire forest. The next morning, someone looks at their half-eaten food and remarks to the person next to them, "Damn, this tastes like shit." "Why does it taste like this?" The other person replies, "Adjust your taste setting to the lowest level before eating as we don't have any physical support items, so we have to make do with these." Legis also chimes in, "Oh, it seems like you've used up all the edible items, haven't you?" She spread her hands to reveal the sparkling golden apple and said, "So, perhaps you need things like this." Everyone was surprised. "This is a golden apple, a precious item, isn't it?" She continued to advertise, "Because this is for 2 of you, I will sell this item, which is worth 10k, for just 1k. The eyes of the 2 mercenaries lit up. They quickly agreed. "Give 4 apples. Oh no. Please sell me 4 apples, all for me." Everyone crowded around as Legis started to compete. "Get out of the way, I'm here first." Legis rubbed his hands with money and laughed happily like a cat. "I can make even more money today." Kong Yuhan, sitting next to her, was coloring red apples yellow and couldn't help but tease. "She truly sells herself to capitalism. She is really cunning, too cunning." Legis sneered. "You are still too young to understand these things. But money can change the world. What you need to improve is not levels or skills, but accumulated resources and bank accounts." She walked away while saying, "Anyway, you take care of the rest. If you complete it, I won't chase you for payment anymore. I'll go out to find some herbs." Kong Yuhan cursed silently. How could she be so obsessed with money? I really don't understand. He started diligently completing the golden apple. After finishing, he raised the golden apple in the shape of a smiling face. "The final product of this item looks quite good." He happily said to the apple, "From now on, your name is Wilson. Let's be partners until we reach North Arc." Suddenly, an arrow flew in from somewhere. Kong Yuhan calmly used the apple to block it without worry. He silently wondered, it was an arrow. At this moment, Guilford shouted, "It's an ambush, all of you quickly adopt a defensive posture." The arrows rushed in and struck numerous mercenaries. A man in a black cloak jumped in. Guilford struck him down, but it was just an illusion. He realized it was a holographic effect as suddenly a black-cloaked figure from behind lunged towards him. A dagger aimed at Guilford's neck. Kong Yuhan rushed to the rescue, shouting, "Arm break," striking him. He chuckled triumphantly, "You owe me your life, old man." The man, enraged, showed no gratitude and retaliated. His attack couldn't even scratch him. But in Guilford's mind, he analyzed that the man was right behind him, and he didn't pay attention. Could his hiding skill have reached a level that even he couldn't detect? He pointed his sword at the new black-cloaked figure demanding, "Finally, who are you?" He started to uncover his mouth with a sinister smile, "Who am I?" He introduced himself as an assassin who had earned the title of the top assassin and was the leader of the Black Knight clan. One of the mercenaries suddenly realized something. "Wait, Black Knight clan that he mentioned here, could it be?" Another quickly added, "The famous private mercenary guild, is this it?" Indeed, at this moment, the black-cloaked figure had completely revealed his face. He nodded and said, "I am Kira, rank 89 on the screen, my profession is an assassin." The mission system displayed, Mission, Reconnaissance Team Total Offensive. Someone is using assassins to interfere with the trade between the Kingdom of Barkas and North Arc. Stop their wrongful actions and head to North Arc within the specified time. A group of people are standing together discussing, "Is he really Kira? That person is a soldier, it can't be, he must be lying, right?" Reflecting on the recent battle, the group continues to talk about the strange points of Kira. "That's the fighting stance of an assassin, flawless, we will all die, right? What should we do now?" Suddenly Kira appears behind the group. He puts his finger to his lip signaling for silence while starting to speak. "I'm not here to kill anyone. My goal is to keep everyone here to earn the title of Patriot in the Dark. As long as you give up, we can end this without me getting my hands dirty. What do you all think? If you all give up now before allowing Kira to finish a sentence." A guy in the group jumps up to object, "Don't joke around. Do you know how much effort I've put into this mission? Are you going to reimburse me? Are you going to repay me? Are you planning to give it back?" Upon hearing these words, Kira shows no reaction at all. He smirks and says, "You're wrong there." Suddenly an arrow flies from somewhere and hits the neck of the guy who objected earlier. This makes those around him somewhat frightened. Kira continues, "I'm not negotiating, this is just a formality. Do you all understand the situation? Now everyone is surrounded by hundreds of my followers. If you don't give up, we will kill all of you. Do you all understand the situation?" The words just now make the whole group think. Leader Gifford looks serious, furrowing his brows, deep in thought. He senses the presence of others, although not to the hundreds, so he's bluffing, but there are still many people in the forest. If the NPCs die, everything will become even more difficult. At this point, he signals to his teammates with his hand. Fingers gesturing along with signals that only the team members understand. The message is, "I will provoke and distract him. In the meantime, use magic to obscure the view from the forest." Hyungsok. Hyungsok at the back has received the task and is ready for the signal from the leader. Gifford starts to count down 3, 2. Just as he is about to give the final count, Kong Yuhan angrily shouts out, "Rank number 1, just a petty thief." This statement immediately causes Gifford to stop the plan to signal Hyungsok to follow. He signals to stop. Kang Yoo-han stares directly at Kira standing above, angrily saying, "What kind of assassin reveals himself and stands above others like that? You have to kill before they notice." Kira looks at the person speaking and remembers he's a blacksmith from before. Guiryeon over here still hasn't shown signs of stopping. He continues, "And if you really are a soldier, you should honorably defeat each person. You're just acting cheap, hiding your followers around and pretending to be tough, pitiful." As it seems that Kang Yoo-han has provoked Kira, his eyes no longer mock but instead show hostility. "That bug is too noisy. Just because you got lucky and destroyed a weapon doesn't mean you can boast like that, you fool." Kira points towards Kang Yoo-han, instructing his men, "That one. Kill him." Immediately an arrow aimed straight at Kang Yoo-han flies towards him. But he manages to dodge it, still mocking the weak attack. But before Kang Yoo-han can boast for long, arrows, swords come flying from nowhere towards Kang Yoo-han's group. Leader Gifford immediately looks towards Hyungsok shouting, "Quickly Hyungsok!" He immediately follows orders. Hyungsok uses magic. An ice wall, a sturdy ice wall forms to shield everyone from Kira's arrows and swords. Seeing the difficult situation, Kira mobilizes all his forces to attack. Kira shouts, "Black Three Knights, destroy them all, don't let anyone survive." Facing the strong Kira, leader Gifford remains calm. He sternly tells Kira, "Destroy, you all are the ones who will be destroyed." Gifford's eyes emit powerful and ferocious lightning. He launches attacks, awakening his frenzy. A bright light appears enveloping Gifford, blowing away everything around. The ground begins to crack and tremble. He directs his sword towards Kira, slashing with powerful force. The sword strike causes Kira to stagger. But unfortunately, he manages to evade and fly away. Despite the attack making Kira somewhat scared, he remains arrogantly taunting Gifford, "It's truly an honor, just a little faster and you would have won." Gifford seems to have weakened. The system displays his current status, "As your stats are lacking, the frenzy mode will be cancelled. You have been hit by the Hydra's blood effect. Due to the Hydra's blood effect, all stats and strength are reduced by 50%. On the other hand, the main character Yoo-han is sinking in self-pride, enthusiastically boasting. Just as he thought, he is indeed a genius. Right before the opponent's attack, at the brink of death, I quickly opened the inventory and equipped a wooden armor. The armor display system showing the function of the wooden armor, a wooden armor piece that can protect the whole body, but it is very heavy so the user cannot move. In the wooden armor, Yoo-han is happy that he is fine. He still thinks, the Red Tiger Guild should have dealt with everything by now. Raiden presses the system button to exit. However, when he exits, he is puzzled. Because everyone is lying around him in confusion, wondering why everyone lost. Before he could think further, blood spurts out of Yoo-han's mouth suddenly. Immediately he kneels down in pain, his face grimacing. The system notification appears again. Due to the effect of Hydra's blood, all stats and power are reduced by 50%. Hearing this notification, Yoo-han panics. Hydra's blood. It is an item dropped by the boss in the Kadria dungeon, Hydra. It is a poison that can instantly reduce power and stats by 50%. Remembering the breakfast he had eaten in the morning, Yoo-han wonders if they had put poison in the food. Scratching his head in confusion, strange, the food was still delicious. While Yoo-han is still thinking randomly, the leader Giffond on this side is exerting all his strength to fight against Kira. The attacks are launched one after another by both parties, each move is very powerful. Kira sees that Giffond is still very strong. He is slightly scared, this monster. After being poisoned, how can he still be this strong? His attacks are all ineffective. While fighting, Gifford is still thinking about a plan to benefit the whole team. We are in a disadvantageous situation, we need to disperse the others. First and foremost, getting out of here is the important thing to do. On the other hand, Yoo-han is running away from the attacks of Kira's subordinates. As he runs, he shouts, he has dodged their attacks but they are catching up too quickly, he must hide somewhere. He just needs to hide in the forest. Legis hastily rode his horse with a clear look of concern. In the forest, Kira's army had almost wiped out Gifford's Red Tiger alliance. Kira stood with his arms crossed while his subordinates were checking the people around after the recent attack. He began to urge his men, the Black Three Moon Knights, to get ready to leave. As soon as the surveillance troops returned, they would follow us immediately. All the Black Three Moon Knights soldiers obeyed the order, clear. While cleaning up the battlefield, a sudden noise came from a tree. This caught Kira's attention. He quickly became alert and ordered his subordinates to wait. What is that noise? The person hiding behind the tree is Legis. she carefully covered her mouth with her hand to prevent any noise, even the slightest breath. Kira was already armed and advancing towards the source of the noise. As he approached the tree where Legis was standing, about to inspect it, one of Kira's men ran to report, saying, "Master, the search party has returned. Just as predicted, they are heading towards the bridge in the mountain pass." Upon hearing this, Kira immediately showed interest, his mouth curled up into a wicked smile as he said, "Really?" Not giving up on his inspection, he swung his sword. A strong sword beam was unleashed, cutting down the nearby trees one by one. Kira, full of enthusiasm, spoke to the entire team. "The Black Three Moon Knights are advancing towards the bridge in the mountain pass. We will go there first and kill them as soon as they arrive, understood?" All the Black Three Moon Knights troops received the order, kneeling down in unison and shouting, "Understood." They began to leave the forest towards their target, the bridge in the mountain pass, while Legis, who had just narrowly escaped a calamity, sat under a tree panting. When Kira swung his sword to cut down the tree, she quickly sat down and luckily avoided his attack. Quickly regaining her composure, Legis began to speculate. If those were the Black Three Moon Knights, then they were the fighting group ranked in the leaderboard. Judging by the NPC corpses and items, more than half of the scouting team members had died. If they were ambushed again, the mission would end. Legis, while pulling the cargo wagon, quickly calculated that she had to inform the scouting team as soon as possible. Suddenly, something jumped out to block Legis' path. It aggressively lunged towards Legis. Its mouth opened wide, revealing sharp, menacing teeth. The appearance of this monster frightened Legis. She exclaimed, "Why is there a golden ogre here?" She ran forward despite the monster still chasing her. But unfortunately, her cargo wagon stumbled upon a rock, which caused Legis to stumble, losing balance and falling forward. She gasped repeatedly, trying to stand up. But by then, the monster was right behind Legis. Her eyes widened as she remembered the past. In a sweet pastry shop, the shop owner, Jisoo, handed Legis, now Jisoo, a bundle of money and said, "Here, I'm giving you this extra." Not understanding what was happening, she asked the shop owner, "Extra for what?" And the shop owner replied, "Well, I'm adding extra because you've been working hard, reward yourself with something." Looking at the money in her hand, Jisoo smiled happily, thinking that if she added the money she had saved up, she could go to school. At the NLS Piano Academy, Jisoo, wearing her uniform, with a somewhat tense face, stood outside the classroom. She was about to open the door. Then suddenly the phone rang. She answered the phone, but as she spoke, the voice on the other end panicked and said, "Sister, it's about Dad." Hearing this, she was scared, her eyes widened in shock. The phone screen displayed a notification about a bank upheaval with the content of unemployment subsidies at the Sungsoon Hospital. Seeing this notification, Jisoo could only smile and scratch her head lightly to comfort herself. "It's okay. Money comes and goes, don't worry." In the quiet classroom, Jisoo sat on the desk lost in thought. In front of her was a survey form for her favorite majors. She listed the schools and majors she planned to apply for: Seoul Institute of the Arts with the Piano Music Department and Yeonil University with the International Business Administration major. But it seemed that Jisoo had to give up her passion due to life's difficulties. She crossed out the Seoul Institute of the Arts from the survey form. Returning to the reality of the game, Jisoo, now Legis, tightly grasped the stone. Trembling, she used all her strength to stand up and said, "I have worked hard to save money. Do you know how much I have spent on this mission? I will not give up this time." Legis resolutely shouted at the monster behind her. Legis threw rocks towards the monster. With the final throw, she seemed to use all her willpower to throw at the monster while screaming, "Die! Die quickly!" The throw seemed accurate, hitting the monster's face and blood started to spurt. Legis continued to shout, "Please die!" But it seemed like the rocks did not affect the monster. It reached out its hand, as if to crush Legis. At that moment, someone flew in from behind the monster and launched a powerful attack on it. Legis instinctively raised her hand to block the attack. She thought she was going to be attacked as the monster's hand was very close to her face. But suddenly, the monster disappeared, leaving Legis confused about what just happened. The monster completely disappeared. Legis collapsed, tears streaming down her cheeks. The person who killed the monster behind her asked, "Is it dead?" When he stood up, it turned out to be Yuhan, who now looked like a valiant hero. About to say something, he turned to Legis, who still seemed afraid from earlier events. Her eyes still filled with tears. Seeing this, Yuhan asked, "What are you doing?"